that we made. Thank you.
And Charlotte?
Sam, could you check this microphone here?
I can say something
Yeah,
while
Ashley.
Charlotte waits. While Charlotte is getting her microphone fixed, I think it's wonderful to be able to sit next to you. Your peers know you as Lily, so I was shocked at school to, find out we've been very formally addressing you all this time. But I've been able to see you do many things at West, including perform in your last dance company concert, which was so wonderful to see. And we actually have a statistically significant number of dance company members serving as our student board member, which is thrilling to me, and fine arts students. So I appreciate that you've had such a wide number of contributions at West in all kinds of disciplines, and that you share all of those with us. So thank you very much.
Charlotte?
May I?
Well, I wanted to just say that I have so much respect for you and how you carry yourself. And you are wise beyond your years, I think. And it was really great to run into you on the campaign trail before I was even elected. I met her on the west side in the community, and I am just so proud that someone from our west side community is representing, students on this board, and that you've done it so well. So best wishes to you.
Mama?
Yes, we need micro. How much did we pay for this building? Just kidding. I am so proud of you. As an immigrant father, I saw that through your parents. Seeing you with your father, him sitting here, when you were introduced to us first time, or when we were having our board dinner, and seeing your mother out there, and just them talking about you and how proud they are. And, you are a living testimony of the truth of the true American dream. And words are not enough to express to you gratitude for taking time to make this happen. Very proud of you.
Helena, you are loved, so well done. Sky's the limit. Go kill it, endeavor. Cool.
And keep us up to date. Your journey ahead's gonna be fun to watch.
My family's here, so I'll pass these things on.
Okay.
Can we have
Can we
everybody
get a
down here take a
picture?
picture? Yeah. Let's take a picture first before you give away everything.
Okay.
Yeah, coming from. Would be great. There we go. All right. Okay, is everybody ready? 1, 2, 3, here we go. Thank you.
Even if you don't want to, you can do that. Everyone makes a room.
Okay, here we go again. 1, 2, 3. Thanks.
All right, so we're still on the same recognition. Helena, with you stepping off, that means that we have a new student board member that'll join us when your term's over. And we're excited to introduce Foss, who was up here. So Foss, you gotta come back up to this table Well, we want to introduce you to everybody. Foss Goodwin from West High School. Foss, do you just mind taking a couple minutes and wanted to say a few words? Or I could read your bio too, if you'd like. And Maya Kurth, sorry, Maya. Excellent. Our two new student board members, Foss, and then our alternate, Maya. Foss.
So I'm just coming from West High School, right over there. I'm super excited to kind of take Lily's spot. As was sort of touched on, we're both in dance company. I've known her for a while. I'm excited to kind of carry on what she's been working on. I think what she's gotten done so far and kind of provided is definitely something that I want to continue. And also just to represent the students of West High School and everyone in the community. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and I'm interested to kind of touch base with you as well as we get into things later on.
I'm Maya Kurth. I'm from Highland High School. I am very excited to be here to just do this work. I don't know a lot about what I will be doing with Foss, but I'm very eager to learn.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Foss. Thank you, Maya. Welcome our two new student board members. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here so that we could welcome you too. I appreciate that.
Forward to working with
And
you.
we'll be, board leadership here will be in touch in the coming weeks as we get started with a new board for the new year.
I'm down. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're all here.
Nice, these two especially.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, here we go.
All right, moving along in our agenda, we have our next recognition, which is the District Dreams Writing Contest winners. I'd like to invite up Dr. Alex Parsons. Dr. Parsons, welcome back. It's good to see you.
It's great to be back.
That was an enthusiastic yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, the walk up here was substantially easier than the last time I walked up here, so we're doing great.
How is that little one?
Oh, she's doing really, really
That's so
great.
cute.
I'm very, very lucky to have an easy baby, and I take 0 credit for it, so. But if anyone wants any pictures, I am graciously and liberally handing them out, so if you just come find me. Okay, so I want to, as we just acknowledged, I've been on leave, and so one of the things that I do want to point out is even though I'm the one speaking here in front of you, I, again, can take 0 credit. My team is amazing. This district is amazing in a way that we were able to have this really wonderful contest begin and end while I was still on leave. And so I just am the one willing to have a microphone in my face. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm here. And so full credits to my specialist who organized it, Christy Richards. You'll remember her from the Tellers of Tales competition that we brought to you with our winners. She was the one who really lifted this and celebrated the strengths of our students in our district. It was a writing contest where the prompt was just an open-ended, what's something that you dream about? We got 181 student entries from throughout the district, and so for the first time having that come forward, a great number, including when we went down to review the responses and narrow them down into finalists, we had 13 schools represented in the finalist categories for responses that really met our expectations above and beyond. We had responses come in that ranged from literal dreams to things like how they have dreams of supporting their family and their parents, and then acknowledging the struggles of the people around them and wanting to be supportive of them. You have a copy of our finalist essays in front of you to be able to enjoy. And so some of them are creative, some of them are abstract, some of them are very real, and all of them are very touching. And so we want to acknowledge the winners here. And so I do know that at least 2 of them are here. The third one did sneak through, so 3 of the 4 of them are here. Fantastic. I'm going to be saying their names. We broke it up into 4 different categories to be able to represent like the different writing levels and approaches of the different students, K through 12 in our district. We do also want to say, before I announce the winners, thank you to the foundation, because they're the ones that were able to provide a prize for that for our students so that they could really have some teeth into the competition. What's a competition without a prize? And you know, a picture with the board is also a prize, but you know, what other prize can we give to that? And
You
so,
have been gone a while.
I know, can't you tell having a newborn refreshes you and gets you so excited for things like this? So I'm going to be naming them in order from the youngest to the oldest to be able to celebrate them. Our K2 winner is from Whittier Elementary. That's Wilder Connard. And so come on up, Wilder. And let's see, our 3rd grade through 6th grade winner is also from Whittier. That is Ethan Chang. Ethan, come on up. Great work. Our middle school winner is from West Middle School. That's Olivia Ding. Come on up, Olivia. And our high school winner, who is not going to be here tonight, but we're still going to celebrate them anyway, is from East High School. It's Ty Mieli. So, congratulations. This is a great example of all of the hard work that our students put into it. Writing is such a thrilling task, and also one that all of our teachers will always celebrate and try to get our students even better at it every single day. So great work, y'all. Yes, let's pass those out. They have some certificates for you. They have some certificates, and so let's see. You have, those of you who have an award to be able to give, come on up and let's take a picture. Good job, good job.
So if the parents want to come up, by me as well,
Christy.
please, come on up.
Here, I'll take your parent cameras so the parents can
Oh, really?
photo.
Really?
You're being photoed.
Christy, jump in the photos. You deserve to be in the photos. Where'd they go? I know.
Do you want individual photos in a group, or what do we want to do?
Yes, let's do a group photo
I'll get in there
first.
with you.
Okay.
Okay. And you first, then.
Okay.
Can we center more, so everyone take steps to your right, thank you.
Good job, Christy.
Front row, move more to your right, back row, you're good where you are.
Good.
Okay.
Remember, if we can't see, if you can't see us, we
Okay,
can't see you.
the 2 on the, yeah, that's good,
There we
thank
go.
you. Okay,
Okay.
so look at Jason first.
Go for me first, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, now this one, 1, 2, 3, keep smiling, I like to take several. Inevitably someone will blink. Okay, and then smile again. 1, 2, 3.
I take
Nice job.
I just take them over and over.
I don't remember, this one's I have. I think this one too. Yes, you're so welcome.
All right, for our next recognition, I'm going to turn the time over to Alan to introduce Zions Bank Financial Advisor Extraordinaire, Alex Buxton.
Well, extraordinaire. Right, he's pushing it. So the district's financial advisor, Alex Buxton from Zions Public Finance, if you'd like to come forward to the table. He's going to talk about our recent AAA bond rating, kind of what that means, why it's important. So, Alex, it's yours.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Alex Buxton, Zions Bank Public Finance. Great to be with you all this evening. As you all know, and probably the majority of the people behind me know, the school district is in the midst of issuing the first series of bonds that the voters approved back in November. And so we've been going through that process over the last several months. And one of the needed items in order to sell the bonds out in the marketplace is what's called a bond rating. And it's been a while since the district went out and met with the rating analysts to get a bond rating. Every bond issue requires its own bond rating. And the last time we went through this process was back in 2013 when the district issued some refinancing bonds, or we call them refunding bonds. And so it'd been a little bit since we had gone through that process. And so we put together a kind of a bond rating team that consisted of Dr. Grant and President Salazar and Business Administrator Alan Kersley and myself. And we put together a bond presentation that was broken up into about 4 categories, 4 sections. We talked about the upcoming bond issue and the bond election that just passed. We talked about the school district as a whole and personnel and the makeup of the school district. We talked about the local economy that within the boundaries of the school district. And then probably most importantly, we talked about the financial operations of the district. And so we prepared this presentation, we rehearsed it, we had several calls where we went through it together. We talked about various questions that might be asked by the analyst. And so we felt very well prepared when we went out to San Francisco to meet with Moody's Investor Services and Fitch Ratings. We went with 2 different rating agencies. We met with 2 analysts from each agency. And lo and behold, the team that I just mentioned did an outstanding job. They were very well prepared. They knew their stuff, so to speak. Weren't any questions that were asked that we didn't have the answers to. And so we felt good about what we accomplished in San Francisco, and then you just kind of have a waiting game as those analysts get together with their bond rating committee within their various agency, and then they come back with us with our bond rating. The bond rating is important because the better the bond rating, the basically the lower the interest rates you're going to get on your bonds, and that saves taxpayer money. It's essentially just a credit rating of the district. And so anyway, they went through that process. They came back to us and gave us the highest bond rating available, which is AAA, both agencies. Yeah, I think that. A real feather in the cap of the 3 presenters and you as a whole leadership board. And so not only do we have the AAA rating from both Moody's and Fitch, but we also have attached to that the guarantee rating. So those are standalone ratings. We also have the enhanced AAA guarantee rating. Just want to note that there's just a handful of districts in Utah that carry that AAA rating, especially from both of the 2 rating agencies. And I believe when we were with Moody's, they had mentioned that it's less than 100 districts nationwide out of the several thousand ratings that they have with various districts that have that AAA. Because they kind of indicated to us even after that presentation that they were leaning towards the AAA rating. So we felt pretty good about ourselves when we left that office, I think. But anyway, I do want to just quickly, as I close, I want to read a couple of excerpts from the rating reports. If you haven't seen those reports, I know Alan has a copy of those. I'm sure he'd be willing to share those. But each agency has a 2 or 3 page report that talks about the district as a whole. And kind of the theme of the letters, they talked about proactive and capable management team. Moody's uses the word proactive a few different times in that report, which again, kudos to this group for being a proactive and capable management team. Strong reserves and strong local economy. Those are the three kind of highlights that I got from those reports. Two of the three directly you guys control that. The economy, you happen to be in a great economic area with Salt Lake City, but those first two directly correspond with you as leadership, and specifically Business Administrator Alan Kearsley with his financial management skills. Moody's said the district's capable, proactive management team budgets conservatively and maintains a strong financial position. And then Fitch mentioned, Fitch expects the financial resilience of the district to hold given the conservative budgeting and district practices. So, with that said, we were able to put those ratings on our offering document that we sent out a couple of weeks ago to the market, and we've been marketing these bonds. I've had several conversations with underwriters that are interested in these bonds. I've sent them the rating reports because they like to get their hands on those and distribute those out to their various investor pool. And tomorrow morning, in fact, we're going to go out and sell the district's bonds. And so we currently have 9 different underwriters from across the country that are signed up to bid on the bonds. It's a competitive, it's what we call a competitive bond sale. So basically, the lowest bidder is going to receive the bonds. And that'll take place tomorrow morning. We hope that a few others, underwriters, might sign up to bid as well. But once again, because of those AAA ratings, we know that tomorrow we're going to get the very best interest rates possible out in the market because we do have that highest rating. There's about eight different categories starting from AAA to single A, 1, 2, and 3, or double A, 1, 2, or 3, single A, 1, 2, or 3, or BAA. So there's a wide range of investment grade ratings that you could get. And once again, kudos to Alan and the rest of you for securing that AAA bond rating. Happy to answer any other questions that you may have. And again, I thank Nate and Dr. Grant and Alan for helping us with this very significant part of the bond sale and getting that AAA rating. Any questions?
Well done.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you, Alex, and Alan, thank you too. I mean, this is your realm of influence that we have hired you to do, so congratulations to you as well. And thank you for your hard work and the finance committee and this team as a whole board. So congratulations, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We move on to our last recognition. I do want to recognize Chelsea Acosta, our vice president, who joined us after I introduced Mike. So thank you for being here, Chelsea. We really appreciate it. Dr. Grant?
Yes, I'm excited to introduce our new associate superintendent who will be starting in July, Annalise Ruiz. Something, and yes, just a quick hello. Annalise is currently working in Jordan School District. She's in Alpine School District. Oh my gosh. I've had a day like this the whole day. I think I've said almost everything I've said wrong. Let me try again. Is working in Alpine School District. I'm just thrilled that she's coming to Salt Lake District. Do you want to give a little bit about yourself? I have some bio here, but it'd be more fun to hear from you.
Okay, well, first, Board of Education, Dr. Grant, Alan Kearsley, and the Salt Lake City School District community members, thank you for this opportunity. I am humble and honored and looking forward to serve our students and our families and communities, and I'm thrilled. Thank you. A little bit about myself. I am born and raised in Puerto Rico, but have been in Utah for the last 30 years. 23 years in education. I have served as a special education teacher. I've taught third grade. And then the last 16 years, I have been at a district level administration position, from title programs to special education to student support services, and looking forward to learn and grow with our teams here and work side by side again to serve our students here.
Thank you, Annalise.
Okay.
We're so excited by what you offer and what you bring with you, so.
Thank
welcome to the
you.
district. Thanks for coming
Thanks.
tonight.
All right, moving along in our agenda, we have the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda except for item 6, 25, 26, school land trust and school improvement plans, removing that and pulling it to action.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion to the motion? All right, seeing, oh,
Yeah, I was just gonna say one point of clarification for people reading. And when we approved positive behavior plans last year, a question was posed to staff about whether or not schools were going above and beyond in their template and we could reduce their requirements, because the legislature only funds $1,000 for the quite robust plans that you see attached. And it's more than $1,000 worth of work, so I was hoping they could do, less. And the answer to that question was no, that there is no correlation between the legislative allocation and the activities that are required by the legislature. So I wanted to answer that question from last year.
thank you, Ashley. If there's nothing else, I'll start with a roll call vote with Board Member Williams.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed Bade, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Amanda Longley, yes.
That motion passes, and we'll make sure to add item number 6 from the consent agenda to the action agenda. Thank you. We do not have any requests to speak this evening. Is that still the case, Helen? Okay, just wanted to double check to make sure nobody signed up. Next, we'll move into our reports agenda. The first item there is the final budget review. Alan, the floor is yours.
All right. We've been building up to this moment for months now. And I know you're all super excited for these. So today, if I can get it to show up there. Sam will come out. So over the last several months, we've gone through different little pieces of the budget. Last board meeting, we kind of finalized the general fund and the special revenue funds. Today, we're just gonna quickly cover there's what's called the summary of all. So we take all those funds we've covered and we combine them together, so you kind of get the big picture of the district. We're not gonna spend a ton of time on this, but we just wanna kind of see it, because when you look at the full budget book, you'll see those pieces in there. We want you to know what you're looking at. Again, these schedules will show the general fund, the capital projects fund, the service fund, special revenue funds, all combined. And I just want to note again that we are not recommending any change to the certified tax rate for the next budget year. So this is what you'll see in the budget book. This is just all those numbers. We show in the budget book 3-year prior actual, a revised current year budget, and then next year's proposed budget. And so when somebody asks me, what is the district's total budget? If we're looking at everything, you can see for the 25-26, you look at your total expenditures, $462 million is the total overall budget of the district. These are those trend charts which we've kind of shown in the past. When we combine everything together, you're gonna see the effect of the bond sale that we just talked about, the 2 big capital projects that we're undertaking and the revenue that comes in from those bond sales. So you see that big jump in the blue line, that'll be the bond proceeds, but then you see following right behind, our expenditures will go up and eventually we'll spend all that bond money. So if you look at this trend, don't be alarmed that things are increasing so much because there's a very specific reason why both revenues and expenditures are on that upward trajectory. As we combine all the funds, you see 48% of our revenue comes from local funding, that's generally property taxes. And this is where you see, if you looked at last year's pie chart for this, you're not gonna see this big piece called other financing sources. So we're gonna get that large influx of bond funds, which kind of skews this entire pie chart, but that's how the budget will be for next year. Then state funding, just 20%, and federal funding, 4% of the total budget. This is where the expenditures go district-wide. If you remember in the general fund, it's about 90% of our general fund goes to salaries and benefits. But now that we're throwing in these big capital projects, you'll see that actually drops to 35%, with 21% going to our capital outlay, which is largely going to be those high school rebuilds. Yes.
When you talk about the capital outlay, we've talked in the past about how certain rebuilds prior to the bond were all paid for in cash reserves.
That's correct.
And you've talked about how those cash reserves are going to go up. Will we see the percentage of capital outlay increase as that continues to go up, or
Yes.
is that not really impacted?
So those reserves aren't shown on this pie chart because these are actual expenditures. I mean, you will see capital expenditures go up, but that's related to the rebuild of the two high schools and the other bond projects. But what you'll see too, and I don't have a chart to show this, is you'll see that fund balance piece, specifically for capital, should continue to grow because we are able to use the bond funds for these two projects, so we'll be able to grow that fund balance. So we can then, for our next big one that's not included in the bond, then be able to pay cash for that in the future.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to cover internal service funds, but I just want to mention them because you will see them in the budget book. The district has some internal service funds, and what internal service funds do is they account for services and goods that they provide to other government departments. So, for example, we have a printing department that's an internal service fund. I, as the business department, can go and get some printing done at our print shop, and then they charge me, they show a revenue in their fund, and I show an expenditure on mine. When we combine all of our funds together, the internal service funds get eliminated, because that would be double counting the revenue and expenditures as far as the government entity. And largely that's kind of the reason why we're not really gonna cover those, because they're just internal ways to monitor and track expenditures. Next steps for the budget. I'm still open to anyone who wants to come in and do any small group meetings in preparation for our budget hearing on June 3rd. If you want to schedule something, just reach out to me and we'll coordinate that. And then I just want to note that attached to the agenda, the exhibit on the agenda are all the other presentations that we've done throughout the last several months. We're not going to cover them unless you really want to go over all 50 plus slides. But really, we've covered them before. They're there for easy reference, so you don't have to go back and find the meeting when we talked about it. So that's all I have for the presentation. Any questions?
Amanda?
So, going off of the AAA bond rating conversation and now this, for our feedback and awareness in the community, when you're proposing the 25-26 budget, how confident are you that it is fiscally sound and responsible moving forward?
Yes, very confident. And I've pointed out a little bit, particularly when we did the general fund, there is a law in the books that says we can't adopt a budget. What it says is that levies a tax bigger than we need, which would indicate a fund balance that's unreserved and undesignated. So we do have to kind of work our budget so that you're gonna see a zero unreserved, undesignated. In reality, that's probably not going to happen. Well, that's not going to happen because that's kind of our safety net there. But we haven't, other than the two school rebuilds, there's no new super grand initiatives or things that we're spending that we're not used to. We do have a good solid property tax base and those revenues will keep flowing. So yes, I feel very confident that we continue to be creating a budget that's financially sound.
Any other questions for Alan? Alan? Oh. Okay, well done. Thank you for all of the presentations. What are our next steps?
So again, in our next meeting, we'll have a public hearing. The public will be invited. The total budget, the budget book is currently posted in draft form on the district webpage. We encourage the public to look at that. We also will have a hard copy here at the district office for anyone who wants to come look at it. And again, if anyone wants to do small groups or just ask questions, please feel free to reach out. And after the public hearing in our next board meeting, we anticipate the board will take a vote and approve both the revised budget for current year and the proposed original budget for next year.
Thank you, Alan. Moving along in the agenda, the next item is our National School Board Association report from board members who attended, either in person or virtually. I know a couple folks did attend sessions and various happenings online as well. This is really an opportunity for board members to share some of the things that we learned, potential ideas that we might be able to incorporate into our work as a district or as a board. This is an accountability measure in a lot of ways too, that we've been talking about for the last few years in attending conferences. You know, with respect to our community and the opportunities that they're giving us as elected officials to really be engaged with best practices that are going on around the country. And so we're gonna take about 20, maybe 30 minutes, depending on how the conversation goes, just for each board member to highlight one or two things that they learned or something that they would like to introduce from their experience in Atlanta this year. It was a lot of fun to be there with everybody, and really great to know that even if you weren't there, that folks are participating remotely too. So that was really exciting. Brian, anything you wanted to add before we start?
So what I'm getting from that is that we're shooting for around 3 minutes a person or something like that. Okay.
Cool. Anybody want to go first? Bryce?
Yeah, first I will say this was the fourth NSBA conference I've been able to attend during my time on the board, and probably was the most impactful and beneficial one I've been to yet. So I kind of approached my time at the conference in kind of two pathways, if you will. One was, and this won't surprise anyone, around family-school collaboration, and the second one was around like student board members. That's something that I've been really passionate about. I'll start with the student board session first. So one of the things that I learned, there's actually a national association for student board members, which I think we may want to potentially think about having our future student board members get involved with. I didn't know that existed. But some of the things they talked about, best practices, if you will, would be having a role for each, or having a role for the student board member at each meeting. So whether that's maybe taking the burden off the vice president and taking time, or things of that nature, there just would be something that they would, not that Helena hasn't been great and contributed, but maybe something more specific. Giving students an opportunity to do more presentations at board meetings is another thing they talked about. And then they also talked about maybe having a, if you will, within each district, kind of like a council of folks that give feedback to the board or the superintendent, and then that student board member, some institutions have, or excuse me, some districts have like 2 student board members, so there would be particular roles that they could have. This kind of tied into the Utah School Board Association conference we had back in January, where they talked about different structures that student board members could be a part of. So one of the things I would like to see, and I know Charlotte and I both mentioned this after the Utah School Board Association, that we'd be interested in maybe leading out on this, but having like a student advisory council or student advisory committee that just had more of a voice in district decision making. But that was a really cool session to go to, so that's one that I wanted to highlight. And then the second one, as I mentioned, was around family-school collaboration and community partnerships. Also learned that there is a National Association for Family-School Collaboration Engagement. And really the message, and I wrote this down, that I took out of everything that was said or provided in that session was and I think this was something I wrote down, I don't think it was a direct quote, if it was, I'm sorry, but students succeed when families, schools, and communities join together. And I have, the last several months have been really pushing more family-school collaboration. In our district, they talk about, sorry, I took like multiple pages of notes on this particular session. But some like common themes: capacity, collaboration, communication, and culture within our districts and within our schools. So there was a lot, multiple pages, and actually remember I had another notebook that I was taking notes on. I forgot to bring that today, but just implementing some of those things moving forward. I know we're having those conversations now, but I'd like to continue to have those conversations moving forward.
Thanks, Brian. I go next? Brian, and then Amanda?
Okay, there were two that I went to, and so I'll just briefly focus on both of them. The first one was building bridges with the board, and I thought that that was a really valuable class in that what it's doing is instructing boards on how they can ensure that they have bridges with their community. And I appreciated the idea of them having, they called them building bridges meetings, and they would have 3 of those a year with the community. And then they would have 3 table talks with the staff so that the district is having dialogue with the whole staff of the district, as well as 3 meetings with the community. One of the things that they also suggested in this one was every fall they would have an education showcase, which I thought was kind of a fun idea. And the cabinet would report to the board members and the PTA and the legislature about the successes that they were having in their schools. I could spend more time on that, but you can go and look, and I could send you the email with the PowerPoint in it. But I think that that would be something that would be really helpful for our district, so that the community had an opportunity to have that input. It's not a quarterly, it's 3 times a year atmosphere. Okay. And then the other one that I thought was really remarkable, it was called K through 12 Civics Education Initiatives. And I told a couple of the board members while I was there that to me this was so engaging. And what it was the New York Locust Valley Central School District developed a curriculum that, the curriculum is lessons from Normandy. And what this curriculum does is it covers K through 12, so that for a week in May of the year, all of the different grades are receiving instruction in the operation of D-Day. And if you were there to hear this presentation, it's really remarkable the way that children are able to go home. So you may, in your family, you may have an 8th grader, but then you also have someone in the 5th grade. And so they come home and they're going to be having conversations in their home about democracy and that sort of thing. And as I was looking at this, it really ties in well with our seal of civic readiness, which we initiated here in this district. But I think that this would be a wonderful way to engage children across all of the grade levels in a really meaningful learning from history. Those were my 2.
Thanks. Amanda?
I had a few, but the two main that stood out was school attendance, what we talked about in the student study session. 3R framework, re-engage, restore, reward. I'm not going to go into all the specifics, but just really emphasized working on ways to re-engage the students. And one of the pieces that they talked about was relationship mapping, and this is what I was alluding to, Dr. Grant, in that conversation in there, is that every single person in a school building, adult in a school building, so they have every single student, a picture of them, and if not one adult has a relationship with one of those children, then they fix it. So they ensure that every single adult in that building knows that child has an existing relationship with them, a connection that helps that child feel seen and wanted in that environment. So it's like it's relatively simple practice, but it helps that engagement piece that makes a child hopefully more excited to be in that environment. But like you guys pointed out, I mean, I've got notes upon notes upon notes. It talks about trauma-informed implementation, homelessness, empowering students to learn the psychology of motivation, modern reward systems, rules to engagement. So that's a really good one that I hadn't gotten my notes in our shared spreadsheet, but it's got a lot of material that could really tie into these attendance and truancy and chronic absenteeism conversations that we've been talking about. The other one that I really enjoyed, it kind of goes into one of the things that you've spoken about, is student-family collaboration, but this one was a student voice for system change, so also going in line with our student board members. And basically, one of the things that I was really excited about was developing these authentic student engagement and engagement in a way that it happens with the students, not to the students. And like a good story, I saw a news article about a local school, not in our district, but the kids, the teacher challenged these kids. They basically, the hand dryers in the bathroom are right next to their classroom. Maybe others have seen this article. And it disrupted their classroom, it disrupted their testing, it disrupted issues. So the teacher was like, well, let's write letters to like the powers that be and let them know what's happening and see if we can get somebody to resolve the issue. So it was I want to say third grade, it was a younger grade level. They wrote, there was a business that stepped up, and the kids presented to the business, explained what the issues were, the impacts to students with disabilities because they're oversensitivity, and short of the long, they got those fixed. So, you know, it was like an authentic student engagement motive. It's you can be effective and change things. So, you know, I could go on a long time with that one. That was a phenomenal presentation and really exciting to see a slew of ideas between what they did on bringing the community in, the parents in, to help them feel engaged so that they're more excited about what's happening in the school, so they want to have their kids be at school more. So another piece that ties in well with the other elements that you all are talking about.
Thanks, Amanda. Charlotte, actually, I know you attended some virtual sessions.
Yeah, I could just point out that I learned that from peers in another school district, not our district. So I think the takeaway would be we have more resources that we could share with members who have work or family obligations and are not always able to attend.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Yeah, so when I went there, I took advantage of going to the Ready, Set, Govern series of workshops, and I found it really helpful. I really enjoyed being at tables with new board members from all around the country. You know, that was interesting. And the one that I think got the most out of was on policy and how policy is very connected it grounds our governance. So, and I was glad to know that our district has a calendar where we review, policy. We know that we're gonna be reviewing certain policy all year round, right? And some haven't reviewed their policies in years. And bigger districts than ours, even in California. So, but what I really liked was looking at our policy with a lens of equity. That was really important. And we did an exercise where we took a real dress code policy from somewhere, some district, and looked at it and said, does this make things worse? Does it make it less equitable? Does it, the language, is it punitive? And they were saying that policy doesn't have to be punitive. It's not, it should inform our schools as to what the expectations are and inform students and the community the expectations, right? And the standards or whatever, but it doesn't have to say, if you do this, you will, Right. So it was good to look at that lens, especially me being on the policy committee. And I was able to apply it right when I got back with which one was it? It was a policy, Christina, do you remember the policy?
We look at every policy.
I know.
I think maybe it was the student conduct one?
Yes, it was our student conduct. It was. And I said, wow, it really gave me the lens to look at it in a really good way. And I was really glad for that. I also really liked all of the arts that were showcased in the whole conference, like all the performances by the bands and the dancers in Atlanta, in those local schools, and all the diversity and talent that was showcased. And then the keynote the speakers were talking about how art is so important to kids and creativity.
Thanks, Charlotte. I'll go next. So similar to other board members, I kind of stuck with a theme, which was specifically around, two themes in particular in one session that I'll highlight that encapsulated both of them, which is governance, board governance, and then of course technology, how boards are using technology to have better meetings, right? More structured meetings, more streamlined meetings, and that's more accessible for board members and the community. So the one I went to that I want to highlight is a session, it was called A Blueprint for Board Excellence. And it was really specific about governing and the type of governance system and structure, or theory or philosophy, whatever you want to call it, that Sun Prairie School District uses. They're out of Michigan. And so they use a form of governance called coherent governance. And there's a book that they highlighted, The Art of Governing Coherently. And I think the really cool part for us and my learning here was that we're doing a lot of those things that they're doing. So they talked a lot about board norms, they talked about retreats, they talked about cleaning up their policies on a consistent basis, making sure that their norms are clearly defined, that their roles and responsibilities are clearly defined, and that they're written into policy or they're written into their board handbook or the equivalent of their board handbook. So I'm really excited that we're on that pathway of doing that as a board collectively too. It might not be called coherent governance by any means, but I think just the spirit and the feeling and the theme of it was really, really inspiring to me. They kind of framed it as moving from chaos to efficiency. Not that we're in a chaotic space. I feel like I've experienced that in some ways as the my time here on the board, and I just love where we're at now. I think we're in a really good spot. And I'm excited that we're continuing this work. And a number of us on the board who've been here for a while are working on. And then some of your predecessors have been working on too before you joined, some of the newer board members. And then the technology element to this that I thought was really exciting, and something that I want to look at. And I know we've kind of loosely talked about board docs and different kind of technologies that we could be using. But this, and a number of school districts that I went to who talked about how to incorporate something like board docs into their meetings, I thought was really fascinating, is that instead of having exhibits like we do now in our current agenda structure, they send out the board doc, and it actually has presentations and videos that are prepared ahead of time. So my bias is that I'm a visual and I'm an auditory learner, and having the opportunity to, just imagining the opportunity to have, Dr. Hall, I'm using as an example, create a video that would be attached to the board doc, right? And board members, instead of us going through.
You have to star in that.
I know, going through and reading like we do now, we would actually watch that video, but that video is also available to the public. And so the public can weigh in on this video and watch it before the board meeting along with board members. That way when they get to the board meeting, they're right to the discussion. And anything that they might need to recap or you have questions about, obviously the presenter's there to do that, but I know we're always, talking about how important it is that we run efficient meetings and that they're timely, and so I just thought that it'd be cool to see if we could incorporate some of those types of things in the future, moving forward. But those are some of the things that I learned about and wanted to share and congratulate us on for doing a lot of the things that I felt like I was learning from these other school districts around the country. So we've got a couple minutes left. Alan or Liz, anything that you want to highlight from your experience?
Just the fun of being together and having time outside of meetings with board members and all, and with Alan, that time together is just nice because it's casual. We're not on YouTube. We don't have microphones in front of us, and it changes the nature of how we're able to interact with each other.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight a session I went to. It was called The Pathway to Safer Schools, A Journey to Increase School Safety, Enhance School Climates, and Improve School Cultures. Now, I went into this thinking, it's going to be, because I've been to others, harden your school, what gadgets are you going to use to make it safe? And especially the presenter, he's the director of school safety for the Charles County Public Schools. Kind of a gruff fellow, and you think, oh, this is going to be typical. But his emphasis was on school climate and how we can make the kids feel welcome, feel safe, and I would wish we could get to that discussion on a statewide level as opposed to kind of where our security is going right now. I just thought it was a fascinating conversation to be a part of.
Thank you, Tom. How about anything you want to add? I don't know if you attended anything before.
Yes, I attended My Country in Morocco. It was fantastic. Had a great time with the family and was able to see my 12-year-old son play as a goalie for a Japanese team in Barcelona. And that was splendid, yes. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that. Great. I think just to kind of recap, but maybe one potential next step is that we have a board retreat coming up in the summertime, and perhaps we could incorporate some of these ideas into those discussions and plannings and see if they would work for us. Moving along in our agenda, the third item on our reports agenda is the inclusion resolution report. My understanding, Superintendent, is that Dr. Hall and Aaron Anderson are going to be presenting to us on this report. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Cool.
First, President Salazar, I would just like to say that I will not be making a video unless there are filters available. I would like that one that makes me look 20. If we have
We
that,
can do.
I will make every presentation a video. We are glad to be here tonight and to talk about the board's Inclusive Schools Resolution. For people who are not familiar with it, I did hyperlink it on the front page as people are looking through this. And I know that 3 of you were on the board, Board Member Williams, Board President Salazar, and Board Member Bade were both on our board when we last, boy, that's echoing kind of funny, when we last updated and renewed our commitment to having inclusive schools. But for those people who might not be as familiar with the document, it is a beautiful document, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things that I found particularly meaningful in it. And this is one of the quotations from the first section of it that really talks about every child having the right to learn and reaching their highest potential. And most importantly, I think, in a lot of ways, being valued as a vital member of their school community, really being able to know that they belong and that that is where they are. And that the board commits to ensure that all students with disabilities get the supports and services they need to maximize their access. So really thinking about some of those things, we wanted to talk about the kinds of things that this resolution focuses on. I don't know.
It's very.
I know, it's really echoey.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. So part of the resolution, we wanted to talk about and present for you guys the elimination of barriers to student success. We're going to highlight the trainings that we provided, the supports resources to increase all of these inclusive practices, and then we're going to focus on the 3 specific areas as outlined within the plan, which is the academic inclusion, social inclusion, and then that physical inclusion. And then the bottom line for this is the idea that we want to become that model district for inclusive practices with appropriate policies and procedures. And this is that one of the many things that we're doing to support the inclusion process. And something Dr. Hall and I have talked a lot about is that while I'm up here with her, this is something that we are a majority district, and so this is not just for special ed, but we're going to talk about practices in general. So want to highlight that. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about progress towards creating these inclusive learning environments in all of our schools. We are going to highlight some training that we've done, as well as other things that we're going to look forward to in upcoming years. We're also going to highlight for you some awesome contributions that we're seeing around our district and this amazing environment that we're creating for all our students.
So one of the things that we've done recently this year is we brought in some training. As Ms. Anderson said, we really want to think about inclusion from the general education side. How are we making sure that we are ready in all of our classrooms and all of our schools to welcome all of our students? Is that moving okay? Okay. So we provided some training this year on a book called Yes We Can, collaborating with general education and special education students in the classroom. And one of the resources that the presenters brought was this reflection rubric for districts and schools and classrooms to look at. And I, of course, am a person who loves a rubric. And so looking through this, I kind of wanted to shape this presentation around the way this rubric is laid out. And it gives us some criteria for things that we really should be looking for in our practices. And that is, of course, first, that belief in student potential. And the presenters talked a lot about this, and we will continue this conversation throughout the district. But it's the idea that all of our teachers, all of our faculty members, all of our administrators, everyone really does have that belief in student potential. That our attitude shows that we believe all students can be successful in our classroom and in our schools. And one of the things that will help us show that is if we've aligned our practices. And that's our policies, but more than just our policies, it's the things that we do around those policies. I really appreciated, Board Member Fife Jefferson, your comment about policies are not always punitive. right? Policies are a way that we show our commitment to actions that we believe in. And so as we look at those things, we really want to make sure that they are positive and they put into place the kinds of things that we would want to see for all students. We also are very committed to rigor, and that's for all our students. As Ms. Anderson said, we're a majority minority district, but we also have a percentage of students with disabilities that is consistent with our national percentage. It's around 15% across the board, which is about what we look at nationally and across the state. And so as we're thinking about all of those students, we don't want that rigor to just extend to 85%. We want our rigor to extend to 100% of our students. And then, of course, as our resolution points out, we want to reflect and think about the things that we're doing well, because it's important to notice the things that we are doing well, but then also to think about those things that we've started but that we're going to continue to improve. So our first section, as we kind of move through this rubric, is this belief in student potential. And what are the things that we're doing right now that indicate that we are inclusive educators, that we are asset-based, and that we want to work with students to enhance their strengths and grow in their challenges. So we're going to begin with just a couple of things that have happened in the last year in our district. So the first is our Moon Mission Symposium. And Ms. DeShazo, our CTE director, will talk about this maybe at some point later tonight. I don't know if you are, but I appreciate all of the work that she did to make this happen, and also to Mr. James Yappius and our foundation and many of our industry partners who came together to support every seventh grade student in our district. Let me say that again, every seventh grade student in our district in participating in a computer science activity. They were using their VR, their virtual reality simulation, to really think about STEM principles and what it would look like if we did live on the moon, and what kinds of things would we need to think about from a sustainability standpoint. And one of the things that will be a running theme as we look through this section of our slides is that idea of thinking about how we make sure that every activity is accessible for all of our students. And we had conversations with the teachers who were leading these classrooms to make sure that we really thought through how would this work with students who struggled in one way or in another, so that we could make sure that they had a successful and positive experience in the way that they were doing that. And so when we think about all of those seventh graders walking on the moon, I think the best part that several teachers said, I didn't witness this, but they all said that when the students put the glasses on, or the goggles on, there would be a point where they were walking and they'd come up to a cliff, and every single student went forward and pulled back because they thought they were about to step over this cliff. And when you think about that, that is really an opportunity for all students to have that experience. A second thing is our Seal of Civic Readiness. So I appreciate all of you who attended the sessions around civic engagement at your conference. As you know, we are the first district in Utah to push forward the idea of having students be awarded a Seal of Civic Readiness. And this is an opportunity for them to do that very same action research that was just described, where they will look at their community and they will find an issue that they are concerned about, that they feel like affects the community that they live in, and they need to address the root causes of that problem. They need to figure out who the change agents are with whom they need to speak. They will figure out a plan of action that they could implement, and when they have completed that, they present those projects either in small groups or individually to a team of evaluators that assess their readiness to move forward and be awarded the Seal of Civic Readiness. And as this team, which is led by Desi Olson, and she has a team of civic leaders, as they moved forward with this, one of the things that we constantly challenged was, how do we make this an inclusive experience? How do we make the rubric for this flexible enough to be able to accommodate all of the learners that come to us in this process, so that we can be sure that they can access this program? So this was our pilot year. It wasn't even our first year. We hold a pilot so that we can be sure that our materials are clear, our instructions are clear, our teachers feel supported, and that when we bring our judges together, our rubrics are clear. We've already talked about the success of this. We had 111 students start. We had 89 students come to our showcase, and those 89 students were all awarded their Seal of Civic Readiness. Now, one of the things that I said earlier is that we have about 15% of our students in elementary school, 15% of our students in middle school, and 12% of our students in high school are listed as a student with a disability. That's our percentage. So when we think about inclusion, one of the things or the markers that we look at is how close to that number do we get with our participation. So we were looking for about 12%, but please remember, this was just a pilot. This wasn't every teacher, this wasn't every school. We had 3 schools, we had 5 teachers, and as we looked at that, we had 8% of our students who have disabilities be awarded a Seal of Civic Readiness. So again, while we are not at 100% there, we have our marker to look forward to next year as this program continues to expand.
Okay. Advanced Academic Elementary Programs, otherwise known as AMP, or for those of you who are old school like me, this is our Gifted and Talented program. I'm still learning all the new acronyms. But we wanted to highlight not only the fact that this has extended throughout the district with some of our magnet stuff, but just we are doing a much better job at finding, we already talked about this term with these asset base. So when we're looking at students, Dr. Parsons and I have had a lot of conversations around finding other skill sets that identify students in their potential for being gifted. And so one of the things that we wanted to highlight is that not only have we increased the number of special ed students who are accessing these neighborhood programs, but just all of our students in general, we have expanded upon the number of students because of that asset-based focus that we're having and finding their strengths and being proactive in inviting them to honor those strengths and really looking at whether they're twice exceptional or just looking at those areas and identifying them within whom they are and honoring that, which I think is huge work that we've been able to do. And a lot of it truly is to Dr. Parsons and her team and identifying and working with staff within the building to be like, can we move service times around so that we can make sure these kiddos have access to anything they've been identified for. So that is super amazing.
And in fact, we have 2 of our magnet schools, one which our number of identified magnet students who have a disability is the same, or actually a little bit higher if you go into the decimal points, as that school's percentage of students with disabilities. So we find that one a win. We have one that is coming up very close, within about 3.5 points. And then one that we are working on to close that gap, but we can see that that progress is being made. So again, our AMP program, which is a very flexible inclusion, really moving forward with this piece, but also in our magnet programs, being able to identify students like that statistically.
May I?
Yes.
On that context, thank you for throwing out the statistics. Obviously, I sent that email last night, and getting the data pieces to go along with this is important.
I didn't see that.
You may not know this right now, but fleshing out, so there is the broad piece of if our population has about 15%, 14-50% students with disabilities, and your program has about 8% students with disabilities or IEPs, on the surface, that's a really good number. We're getting closer to representing the equivalent percentage of the entire school population, so to speak. But then fleshing out, is that number representing mostly students that are mild moderate? Is that, like, what is the percentage representing for this different categories, for lack of better words? Or is it only capturing your mild moderates and not really capturing like the behavior unit or the essential elements pieces? So again, I recognize you may not have that number right now, but that would be something to flesh out if we're really going to work on this objective to being, can't think of the term, but basically leading district and really showing the progress in all of this for all of our students is really dissecting which students are we seeing that progress for, which students are getting that access. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I can speak to the 8% at the CO Civic Readiness. That would be a mild, moderate statistic. Again, this is our pilot year, so we did not extend all the way across, but we have had those conversations about how to make sure that that rubric would be adjustable when our students who are in essential elements are moving in and want to participate in this program, that we would be able to make sure that that would be something that they could do. I believe you were on our committee when we were talking about that a couple of years ago. And so we just have carried that forward. So while this in the pilot year did not do that because we had a limited number of classrooms, it is ready for that as we expand. In our advanced academics, that is not, again, this is a mild, moderate statistic, but we have, again, one school that is 11% and 11%, a school that is 8 and 11, and so, you know, we're getting closer with those pieces in this program. I think it would be an ongoing look to see what that looks like as we extend into essential elements into an advanced academics program. But we're willing to look at all of the things that we can do with that.
Thank you.
So this is another opportunity that we had to do, and I'm going to have Dr. Hull help me with this. This is, remind me,
Oh, yes, Carlin Christensen,
Thank you.
our sustainability specialist.
She came over to my department, we live just right next door, and reached out and said she was doing this awesome sustainability project. Again, it's a pilot, and she wanted to pilot it in as many classrooms as possible so that we can determine what needed to be tweaked. And so we found a couple of cooperative classrooms, both in our hub schools as well as our essential elements classrooms, where she could go in and work with the teachers and present and co-teach this lesson. It's actually a couple weeks worth of lessons and data collections, and they do some really cool things with the amount of light they get with windows, without windows. It's a really cool experiment that they do and how much light that we use. It's a very neat opportunity for the students to collect data and then talk about how we're saving light and using it in our buildings. And so again, because it was pilot, we only did it in certain classrooms, but she was very adamant that we extend this to any space in our district that allowed students the opportunity so that we could tweak and adjust what she was doing. We came back and problem solved. She problem solved with the teachers during the opportunity of the lesson, but this was another, again, opportunity that every student had in the pilot program. So we did pilot it across all settings in our district. And she learned a lot, and the students learned a lot, and we had amazing success where every student was able to come with an outcome and show their data in whatever form that they best utilize in order to provide that information. So whether it was with their iPad and using some sort of a assistive technology device or creating the graph pictorially, it was a really cool opportunity that we're now going to hopefully expand across a specific grade level district-wide now that we've kind of worked out some of those kinks. That was really fun.
And what I really appreciate about the collaboration between our sustainability specialist and Ms. Anderson's department is that idea of creating it first to be inclusive instead of looking at something and then coming back and saying, well, how could we backwards design that? Let's build it that way first. Our National History Day, this is something that many of our middle schools do, and I'll just very quickly shout out to Northwest Middle School, where every one of their 8th graders participated, and that was all of their students at that school. Recently, our Spanish dual language immersion changed. This is not a big thing in terms of the state model, but it was a change that our district made because one of the assurances in dual language programs is that they would be open to any student. They are parent-driven. Parents choose to put their students in the school, but we wanted to make sure that all of our programs were open enrollment without any restrictions. And so we have re-emphasized that commitment to any parent who wants their student to participate in a dual language immersion program They can start in K1 or 2. CTE. We took a look at this. Part of this was with Ms. DeShazo as she looked at different statistics, and so I'm borrowing this from her. But we looked at the number of students in high schools that had an IEP in at least one CTE class. And in fact, in their junior and senior year, many of them did have more than one. And then, of course, the other thing that we wanted to make sure is, well, what classes are those? Are there just specific classes? Or, you know, is it just 2 or 3 that kind of got identified? But it is every class, and it is also our apprenticeships and internships. So we have students in all of our CTE classes across the board. And the low number, of course, in their freshman year would be because not many students take it in their freshman year. They take it
Dr.
more.
Ho, we have a
in-
question.
Oh,
from Board Member
yes,
Anderson.
please.
Does this number show at least one CTE class above meeting their requirement, or just that they were in one
That they were,
total?
that this year that they're enrolled in one.
But this wouldn't show who's taking it, I mean, because it would be like 100% of students with an IEP or in an English class in high school.
Right,
Because
but-
they have to take it. So-
Sure, but they just have to take one.
Yes.
Right,
So
and
does
so-
this measure above the one requirement, which you could take in 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th? Like, do we know that this is something the student has done above and beyond what is required? Does that make
I could,
sense?
yeah, I have the data list and I could certainly pull that. My assumption was that it would be more than just the one, because you generally would take the one that's required in 10th grade, which is, you know, the first high year, and then subsequently you would take,
That makes sense.
yeah, other ones, but I can
I'm just curious.
disaggregate that order
Okay.
for you.
Thank you.
Amanda?
My question, similar to prior, was it dissected out what category of disabilities are accessing these? Are these mild, moderate? Are these essential element students? Like, if they're essential element students, is it just one-offs, or is it like what percentage of essential element students are accessing CTE programs and successfully completing them? You know what I mean? And again, I will give you the grace of, you may not have that data because I didn't ask those questions specifically well in advance. But that would be something to flesh out again to make sure that the access for all
Yes.
is actually there and properly supported.
So this is every student, because the requirement for graduation for our essential element students is the same for the CTE credit. So this is any student with an IEP.
So that's for graduation. Is that also for individuals that do not do a typical graduation?
Yes, any diploma, the alternate diploma or the regular diploma, requires the exact same graduation credits for CTE. So this is any student enrolled in our district with an IEP.
A little bit about our aligned practices. We'll go a little faster now as we get to the middle of this, but we are a district of professional learning communities. We continue to develop that culture of working together, collaborating as students, or as teachers around our students' performance. And as we've looked at this, one of the things that we've identified and that will be an area for us to work forward, that's why it has a different bullet, just as my key going forward, is recognizing that we need to increase those opportunities to collaborate with special education teams as members of all PLCs. That's been an identified area for us to improve in, making sure that special education teachers have planning times with their grade level teams to participate in those PLCs. So as we do that work moving forward, that's a practice that we'll be continuing to align.
So we added some slides in here to reference back to pre-K, because sometimes we forget we have littles in our district as well. But in preschool, we have 3 options listed here. We've got that Gen Ed classroom, which is any student. They could still have services in that classroom, and that would be done through an itinerant person or someone from one of those other 2 classrooms, maybe in the same building, and providing supports that way. Just because the student's in a Gen Ed class doesn't mean they actually don't have an IEP. They still could. And then we have the supported classroom, where we have the special education teacher who's actually assigned to that space with the special ed paraprofessional. And then our collaborative classroom has a little bit more support than our supported classroom. That special education teacher may not share classes or share buildings, and is actually assigned to that space. And also has that special ed para, as listed at the bottom. We're very conscientious about our ratios, and it's not just in pre-K. We're mindful of that systemically throughout our district. And then for next year, we just have a really quick graphic. We have done some tweaking, as always. Every year we go back and we look to see what has worked, what do we need to expand. We've expanded some collaborative classrooms. Whittier is going to have one. And then we've also expanded this idea of supported and collaborative could be blended into an opportunity. And so we have some blended support opportunities as well. And then, as I mentioned, sometimes there, like you see, Dilworth only has an afternoon supported. That will be something where, you know, an educator might flex into that building throughout the week. And then any of those classrooms that are listed, so for example, you've got Washington on there who also has a full day program. We have worked really hard to make sure that if a student is enrolled in that full day program and they have services, that we're coordinating that with that other classroom. With that as special educator, or I actually have an itinerant pre-K special education teacher who wanders the district and supports in our other early childhood preschool options, as well as we have speech pathologists who also support across the district just for preschool and will go in and out of those spaces and provide what is referenced as itinerant, just meaning they don't live there in that space. They come and go between the buildings.
We are also a district that's working toward.
May I? Sorry, while we're on pre-K.
Yeah,
Figure it'd be easier with why we're hitting particular topics than trying to go backwards. I just wanted to point out and emphasize how phenomenal it is the pre-K program is doing what they're doing, having 3 tiers of general education programming versus what was priorly done, where different variations of self-contained units and then general education if fortunate. So just bar none, fabulous, and I hope to see that expand upwards. I did include in my email last night just a request that I know that co-teaching and collaborative teaching, whenever you look it up in the dictionary, they
That's
mean one
time,
of the.
Amanda, I'm sorry.
Sorry, what?
Your time, Brian's been keeping track of time.
Can I finish my statement?
Quickly, yeah.
That's fine. But collaborative can also be, I was talking to Tiffany about this a while back, you know, hey, how do you modify this thing? Great, see you next week. And so the confusion with collaborative can have some negative ramifications. So if we could keep those terms segregated, that would be great. Keep the kids together, but segregate those 2 words.
Thank you, Amanda.
All right. Well, our district is committed to moving through in personalized learning. We have several schools that have been working with our digital technology and learning team to work on ways that we can personalize the way students come to their learning. So this is an exciting model that we'll be bringing you some more information as we move forward. But the areas that we are working on to begin with is in creating those opportunities for student agency where they take ownership of their goals and they have both voice and choice in the way that they learn, what they learn, and the way that they display that learning. Okay, this is the reflection and improvement. So I've given us some stars here as we go through.
Do you want to talk about the
Nope.
stars? Okay.
Oh,
So Unified Sports, just a shout out to Ms. Sutherland and her hard work with her support staff. We are gonna, if you haven't seen it, we've already working on hiring coaches for all the 3 comprehensive high schools that will be specifically for Unified Sports, and they'll be paid that same coaching stipend, which is awesome. And then working with the state, any students who are accessing the Unified Sports, and it doesn't matter if they have an IEP or not, they earn credit. They earn that same quarter credit, just like their peers who are on the football team or the soccer or lacrosse team, for participating for every season. So if they participate in all 3 seasons, they can earn that 0.75 credit for the year, and then those do only go towards the 2 that are listed. You still have to do the other one on its own. But this is something that has really grown, and I know here we only have the high schools, but this is thanks to James Yapius and the foundation, like this is systemic throughout other buildings as well.
we have.
Bryce gave me his time. So you're not done with me. But awesome on the credit piece added to the sport being recognized as one of our regular sports in the district. It's phenomenal. And again, extra shout out to James. He was the one that helped start that becoming a board-approved sport. So thank you, and thank you to the parent, Heather Brown, who has made it a huge success at Highland High School.
Thank you. We've made a commitment to rigor in our curriculum. We have identified and adopted a new secondary reading program, Reading Horizons Elevate. We're using that both in our reading and our literacy labs, as well as our reading classes. Our teachers, both special education and general education, are receiving that training so that we can support students at a variety of different reading levels in the secondary, middle school and high school settings to be able to look at that across our continuum. We also have integrated ELA programs, our Wonders and our Wonder Works, so that as students flex back and forth into different classrooms, if they come from a resource classroom or an essential elements classroom and flex into general education classroom for part of that literacy period, then their texts and the language and everything else that is being used will flow across. And then Eureka Math. We chose this program because it does, in fact, come with accommodations and modifications built in to be aware for teachers. Again, we're trying to build that flexible membrane so as students move back and forth, they're always able to do that or see that, and teachers are focused on teaching on grade level with that level of rigor. As we continue to get better at this, I didn't give us a full star on this yet, but we're really working to get all of our teams with the professional development and support that they need to make sure that those curriculum pieces are in place across the board. Peer tutoring.
Okay, so again, we have really increased this district-wide, but we still want to continue to make it better. You can find this in elementary and in our secondary schools. What we're working on with our teachers is making it so that it is systemically similar. We talked about rubrics earlier. Whether it's a rubric or some sort of specific training and outcomes, we want it to be very similar so that when you walk into one building versus another, or go from one set, so like elementary to middle, middle to high, that it's looking similar in all of those spaces. So we're working to continue to make sure that that training is not only for special ed teachers, but also for gen ed teachers. How do you support them in your classroom? What does this look like? And then how do we use these students to best support each other? Dr. Hall and I both have children in our lives who are a part of this, whether it's in our district or other districts, who it's life-changing, both for the student who's the peer, as well as the student who's getting the support. And we find that this is something that we want to make sure continues to grow, because it really doesn't matter what level of support a student has for services. This can be really implemented in any of our buildings, because it's just that peer-to-peer model that makes inclusion and opportunities amazing for all of our kiddos.
And we get a half star because where it's happening well, it's happening very, very well, and what we want to do is make that systemic.
Sorry, I'm just gonna, it's just me, sorry. But just on that piece, it's just an extra emphasis on not just training for teachers, but administrators as well, because there have been times where, especially early ages, it's almost a fear factor of that peer partnership and that structure with the younger group, and not really recognizing or seeing how it can work and that value in it with the, kinders or first or second, when it really can be done at a really young age, so.
Yeah, absolutely, and we do have it in our elementaries, and that error is mine on the slide when we were talking about training. It is also training with the students, but also anytime we're doing something with teachers, we want to loop those administrators in, so that becomes a really cohesive unit. So I should have been
And
more.
I'll always give a shout out to peer
Yeah.
tutors because of my experience at East. I was a peer tutor in almost 3 years, and I don't think I was allowed to be one that long.
But
That's so much fun.
But you were so good at it, they just wouldn't let you
But
go.
the point is, there shouldn't be a requirement or a lack thereof of what you have to do it, because really any student, any child can be kind and supportive to any other student. And so I do think that's something that we need to end, this idea that there's a limit to how much you can do that. And then I did forget to mention, I'm also working with Laura on this as well, and looking at potential CTE pathways for students to then work towards like becoming a paraprofessional, with then becoming like within us, so making this sustainable within Salt Lake, and then becoming on that teacher pathway. So we are looking to extend some of this peer tutoring into some pathways in CTE. We've been working on this for about 1.5 years now. It's a process that, again, we want to bolster the program itself before we look to extend some of that out. This was me. Reflection and improvement, again, so co-teaching has something that we have done systemically for quite a while now. And it's something that we continue to improve and work hard on. Dr. Hall already mentioned the Yes We Can. So that was partly an introduction to working together and collaborating. That's the idea of Yes We Can. And so what we did today with a whole bunch of coaches and some administrators was a first set of professional development with USBE on co-teaching and implementing it systemically within our district to support all of our students, no matter what school you're in. We are working, you'll see really soon that we are working to hire 4 coaches that are being funded by USBE. 2 of the coaches will be specifically with a SPED license to support the SPED teachers. 2 of the coaches can be SPED or not elementary, Gen Ed licensed, but they must have co-teaching prior experience, and they're gonna go out to these certain schools that have been identified through the I3 grant and work with those schools and support that. But we are taking it larger than that to any school who wants to be included in this system of professional development. We're gonna have the 4 days in August, and then we're gonna have professional development throughout the year next year. Again, for any of the schools who have opted in, and as we were leaving Liberty today, I think I got another school who's gonna come join us in that opportunity. The biggest areas that we've talked about for the improvement piece is that collaborative planning time. This is something you will always hear me advocate for my department and my teachers. But also for the Gen Ed teachers, is this doesn't work without having opportunity to plan together and to work together. So that's something that we are being very thoughtful about. And then it's already indicated this additional development and support for everyone. It's administrators, it's teachers, and it's coaches. It's a system of supports that we're putting together. And like I said, we're working with USBE and their co-teaching support staff to create individual plans in each school, but then a district-wide plan for how we're going to roll this out after we roll this into these schools.
All right, let's just end with a couple of bright lights. That's one of the things that your resolution asks us to do, to bring you some of the people who are really making a difference. So every year when we give this presentation, we're going to bring you some current stars. So just a few to begin with. At Backman, we've already recognized Elizabeth Holloway and Debbie Palm and Matt Teeter, their principal, who were given the Science of Reading Award from the state, and they are a co-teaching classroom.
Okay, at Hillside, we have this amazing PE teacher who actually, he has his APE license along with PE, and he creates opportunities so that students can just sign up for PE, and he adapts on the fly to make sure that students are finding PE accessible no matter what their needs are. I'm gonna do a quick shout out from my own little area of desire, and that's students who have visual impairments, and something that I think we should continue to look at is like goal ball and things like that for our districts. That's something we don't regularly see in our schools. But as we said, this teacher, he's doing amazing things so that we don't have to, he collaborates with our APE teachers already, but there's that idea of co-teaching and co-facilitating these classrooms so that any student can participate any period of the day.
At Emerson, we have our 4, 5, and 6 co-teaching classrooms who are regularly recognized as models as our teachers float in and out of those groups, small groups, individual groups, or working with individual students. It is very hard, talking with Ms. Reynolds, their principal, to determine as you walk into a classroom who has an IEP and who does not. And that is our true goal for these kinds of classrooms.
I should note, those were all different grade levels. That's not just one classroom.
Yeah, sorry.
And then Hillside and Clayton, we're going to highlight. They have music productions, if you've never gone, they are fantastic. That includes their entire building, as long as they want to participate. If you don't want to participate, they don't make you. But it includes your entire building in both of these, and these educators that are shown on here, they're working hard to find ways to adapt and accommodate and support all students so that they all have, whether it's a speaking part or just an acting part, they're accessing their after-school activities. And this is, I forget what they did this year.
Beauty and the Beast.
Thank you.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast, I'm like, there's a
Yes,
knife.
there's a knife.
That's a knife.
And they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing performances. That's it.
All right, well, that is our report to you this year. I appreciate your feedback, and we'll take that into consideration for next year as we continue to improve these presentations. But we do in fact believe that our secret in education lies in respecting all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Brian?
I have a few. The first one was, in the beginning you were referring to the rubric. Was that something that you just adopted at the beginning of this year or how long have you been using that rubric?
We got it when we did our Yes We Can training, starting just a couple of months ago. It was just a tool that I liked and picked up and have been kind of using
That's what I
to
thought,
frame
but I
my thinking,
understood.
yes.
Because you know that I like rubrics, but I also think that that helps drive your analysis of how inclusive this really is, or how you're accomplishing inclusivity. When you were talking about it, you were also talking about all students. So we have dual immersion and we have the special ed, and you were also referring to the advanced academics and identifying or beginning to identify those students that are gifted. I think those things are really critical, especially in our Title I schools, because a lot of that population, that's the only tool that we have to find them. In some of the other settings, there are other ways that parents and others are supporting those children. I guess what I'm trying to get at is ensuring that we are considering those students as much as we are all of the others, because I think sometimes they get neglected, and we need to make sure that they're engaged. It's, to me, really sad to lose those children because they're bored. So with that, you talked about professional development for SPED and all of those sorts of things. Are there professional development opportunities for gifted and learning? Are we ensuring that that piece is getting the support that it needs as well?
Yes, we are, but it isn't the focus of this presentation, and I've already gone too long. But I will say yes, and I would be glad to talk about that with you at length.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our presenters? Helena?
I really appreciated what you said about like the impact that peers can have on each other. And I was wondering if the recent event at West, like the Panther Palooza event, if you are aware of that, falls under this. I believe it was like a dignity initiative where Student Gov was given some amount of money to put on an event to promote clubs and stuff. And I thought something like that is like very impactful because it's peer-to-peer and no one has as much of a vested interest as the people running those clubs. So that's something I thought was valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time. Moving along to our discussion agenda. The first item there is property use, former Riley Elementary site repurposing for expanded career tech center. Dr. Grant, you want to introduce this, please?
Yep.
Okay.
Glad to. Sam, will you throw up those slides? Just to start out, we've talked about this a couple of times, so I wanted to place this in context first. We are in the process of doing the G5 policy where we are deciding what to do with our unused school buildings and sites. So we have 4 elementary schools that are unused. In this process, the G5 that we decided on, the first thing we do is determine district needs. So we're in the middle of that. So I just wanted to, you could flip to that next slide. Just wanted to place that in context that we're there in that district needs section of things. Next one there. So we are bringing to the board the recommendation that we designate Riley Elementary School for a larger expanded career and technical center. That's what we're working on here. I wanted to explain a little bit again why. Now, most of this is in the memo. You've read that. I only have a few slides here, so I don't want to take too long talking. But the reason we're coming here is we call it district need in the G5, but I think that's the wrong language to use. Because then it misses the point that this is about student needs, that we're trying to meet student needs. So in this, we're looking at a situation where we have a career and technical center that's landlocked, essentially, within that building on this lake campus at the old South High School. It's limited with just 12 classrooms. The seats that we want to offer and that students want to have in CTE classes are much fewer than we can provide in the CTC Center. Counselors, students have talked about requesting more of that. And so we want to look at moving to a new space that would allow us room to grow the CTE program. We would be growing the number of seats in the program. We'd be growing the number of programs available right now. We're limited by space in the number of programs we can provide students. Some of those programs themselves within the CTC Center are limited by space in what they can offer within their program. They aren't able to get outside. We don't have good space there for that sort of activity. And essentially what this means is what we're trying to do, again, is offer more opportunities to students by being able to have more space to do that. And this, to me, is a window of opportunity where we have these buildings that are currently unused, and we can designate one to meet student needs over the long run. And so we're coming to you with that. Could you hit that next slide, Sam? I wanted to just do 2 things quickly. One is to remind you what a pathway is. So this lays out just what we've got for the IT pathway example. So we start out in CTE programming. The idea is that we first give kids a sense of awareness. That starts to happen in elementary school and then middle school. Then move to kids exploring their interests with some of these intro classes. So here we've got awareness classes at the middle school where they can start to get an idea of what these CTE courses have to offer in IT. Then in high school, they take an Explorer course if they'd like to pursue more of that. And then they move on into concentrator and completer courses. So our goal is to create pathways for kids. So they take some awareness in middle school, they take the college and career awareness, they decide they love the idea of website development. They go to high school at East, Highland, and West. They have a number of courses to choose from. These are all available. So they take an introductory kind of exploratory course, maybe in web development. Then they say, I really like this some more. I either want to go into the GIS, that Geographic Information Systems, take a couple of classes in that, become not just an explorer, but a concentrator and then a completer. So the idea is to get 3 full courses in CTE if we can, because that means the students have completed the pathway. Students who complete CTE pathways nationally graduate at a higher rate than students who do not complete CTE pathways. We were talking earlier about attendance. CTE offers an engagement strategy for students. Our rate of graduation among those who are CTE completers is 97%. There's no other subgroup, I think, that, well, there may be other subgroups that hit that, but it may be one of our highest subgroups. So they're moving through that. At East, West, and Highland, we also have CTE coordinators that create the internship opportunities and oversee those for each of the students in these kinds of pathway production. The next slide I wanted to spend time with too, because I think there's a misunderstanding. If you could flip, thanks. I just want to be clear that the board and the community understands what we're looking at here. First, we already have a tech center, and we already have CTE classes at East West. So what we've tried to portray is what's available. And Laura, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but East, Highland, and West each offer these classes in gray in the middle column on the slide. They offer them now, and we are planning to continue having them offered next, when we rebuild Highland and West, so that those courses are offered that way. The courses on the right-hand side are those that are offered in the Tech Center. Now, some of those courses, well, this gets a little confusing with money, but the ones in black are currently offered in our Tech Center and are funded through those CTE Tech funds, Tech Center funds. The red ones are the ones we'd like to move forward with to grow out that way into new things. So last week there was this question, or last time we met, a question about robotics. Robotics stays at the high schools in the current form it's in, but we would look to create an even better robotics experience in the Tech Center. Should we have the opportunity to move into that, so that something we're a little more advanced.
As a point of information, not all 3 high schools offer all things in that middle category. They are offered at some, and some are offered at all, but not all of them are offered at all.
Connect with Laura here. Yeah. Oh, and this is in your packet. I wanted you to have a hard copy so it's easier to see, by the way. Yeah, this is on the back, sorry. Yep.
So that is an accurate statement, that some courses can't be offered in every high school because we're limited by educators. So and another point of interest I think is really great to know, like including the IT pathway. IT teachers are really hard to get. IT teachers are working in industry making a lot of money. So sometimes we're very fortunate to be able to get an industry professional that can come and teach IT classes. Same for engineering, same for robotics. And so that's why these programs are offered in a tech center. A more robust program can be offered in a tech center because we can bring those students to one high cost, high earning potential teacher. So I think that might help clarity. Some of those introductory classes, like the robotics introduction, we do offer, even in middle school, we have a robotics teacher that teaches in an 8th grade at Bryant. So there's a smattering of each, but it's not all courses are consistently offered, like Board Member Anderson said, in every high school. I wish we could.
Thanks for clarifying that. So what we're trying to do is look at how can we fit in more programs in a tech center? How can we grow opportunity for kids? And these are the first things that we're looking at. When we look back at that pathways piece, what districts typically do, because of the way CTE dollars flow, is they distinguish between CTE programs. So you tend to put across your high schools your introductory CTE programs, and then your more expensive and more advanced programs in a tech center kind of thing, particularly those that are more expensive. And as Laura said, because we have few teachers in some areas that are able to do these classes, then we would put them in a tech center because they can reach all kids across the district, not just those in a particular high school. So you're trying to find room for the expensive, large programs because of the rule of redundancy. We're not able to create redundant programs across schools with the CTE funds if they're expensive programs. They limit us. So they say you can have these CTE dollars, but you can't buy expensive things for every school. You have to consolidate that in those rules of redundancy that way. So that's what we're trying to create. Next slide. Sam, thanks. So attending to costs, I know this is a big issue. What we've talked about is the phased implementation plan. That we would move at the speed of money. That we would look to relocate the CTC programs as they are right now in the new Riley, if we're able to use that, where they could already then take advantage of the extra space given there. I changed I highlighted in blue the changes I made from the last presentation. It's probably too quick to get them in there this summer, to move that way, just to get the moving up and running and logistically in place. So we probably have to wait till next summer unless magic happens, but I may have to give up on that. And then move that program next summer would be one of the goals. Phase 2 would then be to start tailoring spaces for other programs as they come in, to grow them, to get outdoors, to offer the welding program, because our plan is not to put that back into the new Highland, but rather to put it in a CTC center if we can, so that it expands its reach across the district. As Denise was talking about, she's really a remarkable teacher, and we're lucky to have her. Saying she grew the program from 80 students to over 300 in her time there is a testament to her work that way as the lead teacher. And then to look at more expansive and more expensive changes needed to bring in other programs in the next few years. And Alan had me put in there and beyond, with the idea that we don't yet know what the programs of the future are, and so trying to create flexible spaces that way that we could put new programs in over time. And next slide, Stan. Thank you to that. We're sensitive to the costs, and so we've got the funding sources here, and Alan is prepared to answer questions about this and present on how we're planning to pay for something like this.
Yeah, let me just kind of cover this slide and also keep the previous slide in mind as I talk about funding. So the initial phase 1, the Riley building is largely for phase 1 turnkey. There might be some new furniture we can move the furniture over we have, might need to furnish new classrooms as we're expanding. But there's not a lot of remodel that would be needed for phase 1. Those costs would be covered by the CTE program as we move those classrooms into a new building. In addition, there's the state grant, which the application isn't released yet, but it was $65 million statewide that was approved at last legislative session with HB 447. As soon as that application becomes available, we want to be able to get our application in and get as much money as possible for some of those newer and expansive and more expensive items that we can use those funds to address that. In addition, and I appreciate that we have Rick Davis and James Yappies from the foundation here, we would like to direct the foundation to begin some fundraising campaigns to, as we address, we would like to build out this program, or we might need to do some remodeling to the school to fit this program. That between the foundation and industry partners, we can get some private funds to help cover the cost of those expansions. So really what we're laying out here is, as far as the district funds, property tax, minimum school, et cetera, or even our capital funds, we do not intend to use our funds for this, as we would use both a mix of CTE funds, state grant funds, and foundation funds. Is there any questions on that?
Ashley?
What is the estimated total cost for retrofitting Riley? And as a comparison, what's the total cost that we spent retrofitting Roslyn Heights when it moved from accommodating elementary schoolers to teenagers?
Yeah, so Roslyn Heights, I don't know, that was what, 20 years ago? So I don't have that answer. It was brought up in a previous meeting about the toilets. All the toilets, with the exception of the ones in the kindergarten area, are standard size toilets. So those don't need to be replaced. So there's really not much that needs to be retrofitted to move high school kids over there. It's more furniture, and we can bring the furniture that we have over and then do new classrooms. If as it goes, I have an email from Tyler, or I can't, we have too many ways to communicate, I don't remember if it's email or Teams. Kind of an estimate on what it takes to both put furniture, new furniture in a classroom and also move the furniture. So I can be looking that up, because I think there's another slide or two.
There's actually not, I think we're at the end here, aren't we? Oh, yeah, one more slide.
I have, if there's more financial questions, then the best do them
Yeah,
at
let's
once.
just do them now. Let's go back to that one.
And knowing we were not very successful receiving state funds for school safety, right? We asked for 10 million, we got 700,000. I don't know how much faith I have in item 2. So if I move on to item 3, I had asked in the last meeting if we knew sort of the average annual amount raised by the foundation, as well as if we could talk about the model the board engaged when we went through a similar process to fund the community learning centers. So when the board and the district worked in collaboration with the foundation to fund community learning centers, what was that process and how did they identify the total amount of funds to be raised?
Yeah, if it's all right.
Oh,
Mike.
please.
All right, first of all, that's an excellent question. Board Member Anderson, one of the things that we will do, if the vote goes to do the CTE Center, we will evaluate the total cost of the retrofitting and identify and make sure that we have the architects, for example, when we did the West High Clinic, we hired the architects to give us a cost. And once they did the cost, we had enough partners that wanted to come in and support the project. Similar to this project, we would do the same thing. We've offered to also, if it passes, we want to be able to put at least $200,000 to start the process to design and see what phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 would look like, and what the cost would be. Now, industry partners will only come if we have a specific cost, and they're ready to come. There are many who are interested, who would like to be a part of this partnership. So as far as the cost, I can't give you an exact amount, but do I believe that we can generate that cost? Absolutely. I think as a foundation, when you look at West High School, we estimated for the capital campaign for that was about $800,000. And then we knew that the operations was going to come through the University of Utah. Similar on this project, that once we identify specific areas of need, we can bring those specific partners to bring in the dollars and be able to be partnering with Salt Lake City School District.
And just to reiterate, so you don't have an average annual amount that you've raised, you're just saying we would be able to identify what it is once we had a cost. But how did we go about that process in terms of the CLCs?
Well, I wasn't here during that time, but
I was during those times. And what happened was we came up with an idea, and then we fished that idea for those investors in the community who would like to take it. We can give you an average of how much we bring in every year, but that would be almost irrelevant to what we're talking about, because what we do is we find some people that are committed to doing big things in a wonderful school district and are excited to get on board if we have a project worthy of their investment. One of the CLCs was basically handled by one family. They said, how much is it going to cost? Here's our 7-figure donation. So that doesn't fit into how much we're going to make every year. That's how we anticipate funding such a facility. And I've been on the SLF board for 15 years, so I've seen most of this stuff happen.
I have one more follow-up question then. I have one more financial follow-up question and then one more to the superintendent. And The first is to Alan, I believe, which is if the foundation couldn't cover whatever the proposed total is, because we don't have a total, right? Like, we just don't know how much such a retrofit would cost. Specifically on this proposed timeline, what capital expenditures would we need to defer to cover potential costs?
Right, so I think, as Superintendent said before, we only will move as fast as we have the money. So if the foundation were not able to raise enough funds for a specific remodel, we would pause on that until the funds were here. It is not our intention to use any of our capital funds for this project. Now, with that said, when the current building was built, the district upfronted that money for the CTC Center, and then over a payment plan over several years, the district was paid back with CTE money. We don't intend that to be the case here, but I just wanted to throw that out there that that building out there by the Slick campus was ultimately funded by CTC funds. And I do have the answer to your first question.
Thank you.
So an estimate to move the furniture and equipment from the current CTC Center to Riley is somewhere between $40,000 and $55,000. And then an estimated cost to brand new furnish a room is about $12,000 per room. And so, and those would be the costs I noted would be covered by the CTC Center or CTC funding.
And that's not a comparison with Roslyn, it's just those are the estimates?
Correct.
Okay. My next question would be to the superintendent, which is there a harm to tonight committing to something like a feasibility study that would get us across that first step? Like if we were to agree to do a feasibility study to identify those costs, it sounds like all the players here financially need to know what the costs are. And would there also be a harm in that feasibility study considering other spaces in our district? I've heard a lot of concern about transportation, which I can identify as a couple of examples, and also the needs of other buildings central in the district like Hawthorne.
I'm not sure what I know what you mean by that needs of Hawthorne.
But if we were committing to a feasibility study, could we look at the feasibility of multiple spaces that are in need of use? And the reason why Hawthorne is coming to my email is specifically because there's concern about people who live in Glendale, very close to the campus of Riley. Like if I lived on Fremont Avenue, around the corner from Riley Elementary, and I took the bus to East High in the morning, and I took the bus to a double blocked period in the afternoon at the CTC, I would have to choose whether to go back potentially for a last period and sports or stay home in Glendale. And if I go back and forth again, I've now been on the bus 4 times if I'm a student in Glendale commuting to and from East. Whereas if I'm a student coming from another neighborhood, I'm not. And people are asking in my email and maybe others, why we're not committing to a kind of feasibility study of multiple buildings in the district for this purpose.
Because we had Isaac Astle as our buildings and grounds lead conduct that study essentially. We were looking at multiple factors on the buildings. We were looking at building age. And Riley is our newest building, which matters a lot when you're thinking of wiring and technicalities that way. And what the update is needed there. And maybe it's easiest to say there are 4 schools and 2 of them just don't fit because they would be so hard to retrofit. So Mary W. Jackson and Benyon just don't work well for these kinds of needs to keep because their costs would be so great and to retrofit. So if we look at Hawthorne, which I think is a legitimate property that way that we look at, so we were looking at the age and essentially the health of the building to hold this kind of thing, as well as the amount of room on the property, the amount of room in the building, as well as the room on the site itself. Hawthorne's quite limited in its site. It's just not as big a property, which gives us trouble, because this is the other thing we looked at as parking, being able to park in this place. We also looked at placement within the community. One of the things that a Catalyst Center like this, a CTC Center, has is a lot of comings and goings of buses around, and that gets more difficult in Hawthorne and more of a neighborhood versus in Riley that's a little set apart from most of the homes. There's just a handful around there. And it also has access on 9th West, so it's an easier access to that campus area. It allows us to grow the building, should we want to put in a site for construction. Say Big D Construction wants to help fund construction programs for students interested in industrial construction around Salt Lake City. We would ask them to participate as partners, help us with equipment as well as building out a big warehouse style room that would hold something like that. And then we were looking at location, and I think there's an argument to be said for not putting all of our secondary school programs east of the freeway. And so having Riley there on Ninth West can be a value. We'd look at too, I've thought about this, and the students commuting, actually, I think it's an important point. They commute right now. For 20 years or more, 20 to 30 years, we've been busing students to technical centers to take advantage of these kinds of programs. So students have to do that. I mean, it's part of what it is to take advantage of another program in another place. But there would be something to looking at having some sort of easy commute for students near the building rather than having to get to East and return just to get to class. So I think that can be something we can work out. The other thing we're trying to work out and are giving a try with in some ways next year is looking at double blocking classes so that there's additional time at the building. Rather than spending all of your class time driving to the class, spending a little bit of class time going back, double blocking those sessions. Some districts do that. Davis particularly, which has the Catalyst Center, has a long commute across their large district, and so they double block some classes that way. There was something else at the front end of your question that I missed, Ashley.
Yeah, it's just, could we have a feasibility study of
Yeah.
the things you said? Because you stated sort of that Isaac did this, but a real feasibility study like, we did for the high schools or we did for the potential of an additional high school. They included things like enrollment, they answered questions about transportation, and they helped determine what the ultimate cost would be, which would help us know if it is in fact feasible to move forward on the proposed timeline. So could a feasibility study be conducted of this project that would help answer a lot of the questions that are still outstanding?
Yes. I think we have a pretty good sense of some of those answers from our transportation department and things. Like in the memo, we had a response from our transportation team speaking about the feasibility of this and.
Well, I'm sorry, just as a point of order, the memo that is being addressed talks about the number of total routes. It doesn't talk about the experiences of students who would be bused from the west side to the east side and back and their outcomes. Because it's very beneficial to say we shouldn't offer programs all in one location, but it is specious to say that being on the west side would be easier knowing that our neighbors in Glendale are zoned to East High on the east side. And that potentially commuting 4 times a day, even in a double blocked period, could restrict access to sports and other things that if a feasibility study is comprehensive could rule that out, that's more than what is in the memo, which is total number of routes, not convenience of routes for families using them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm not sure we could get a feasibility study of the outcomes for students that way. They do that now. They do 4 routes a day if they come up to East and go to the CTC, then back to East.
But not next to them.
And then back home. So it is adding 5 minutes to their commute. We're anticipating, we're kind of looking at that at different times of day. So each way, it's 5 more minutes. So it does add to
more.
that. It depends on the time of day and what kind of traffic you're hitting, but.
We drive the bell schedule, the longest is 26 minutes.
Yeah, we haven't found that yet when we Google map it, but we might be finding different times
All
to
to
look
say
at
that I think a feasibility study would, many people have had outstanding questions, from the right to the left of the table. And I'm wondering, just is there a harm to spending less on a feasibility study now to make sure our questions are answered and we're able to put forth that total cost that the foundation partners have indicated is how they would determine what the buy-in is for a project like this.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We can, of course, this is at the board's will, so we can do that. What I'm trying to understand is the feasibility study. I thought we were originally talking about understanding the costs, so the people knew what they were getting into that way. And we're not able to get the costs until the board gives us the okay to go ahead and spend some money in trying to get down what would be the actual cost of retrofitting the building. We need an architect or somebody to do that. A feasibility study feels like a very different thing, and it feels, it seems outside the process of G5 a bit, in that doing a whole feasibility study on this actually negates all of the work done around CTE and by our experts in the district to raise these concerns and stress test them and come up with some plans for this. I mean, I think it's worth finding out the actual costs. We'd like to do that. Well, we'd need to do that to move forward. The feasibility itself, you know, to balance the difference between a student having to take a longer bus ride versus not having the opportunity to participate in any of these programs, that's a real balance that I think we need to look at. I mean, we're talking about, can we expand the welding program so that we don't have a wait list? Unless we say yes to a larger space, we can't expand the welding program. So I'm not sure how we put that against the extra costs of transportation for some students in terms of their time, when we're trying to moderate for that time expenditure too by trying some different scheduling tactics. So I guess I would like to, if we're interested in finding out the costs before we move forward, I think Alan has stated that we actually are only going to take on those costs that we know we have funding for. So I'm uncertain about that a little bit, but if we did move forward that way, I would like ahead of time the direct things we're trying to get from that study, and not be guessing at what we're trying to get from that study. So leave that to the board to take up.
Amanda?
I have a lot of, speaking of this, I have a lot of thoughts I'm circulating on. I'm going to try and make sense of everything that I'm chewing on as this discussion's been going on. Some of the things that stand out to me is, one, it's made very clear this is not coming out of district funds. It's coming out of the CTE program, it's coming out of the state grant, it's coming out of SLEF fundraising in a phased way as the monies become available and no more. So it's putting money into a feasibility study to identify the monies that need to be put into it at each phase that is kind of an evolving concept, and then we progress accordingly, doesn't quite add up to me. And then additionally, when I was reading the statute, it says that the bill takes effect on May 7, 2025, and it's one-time fund, if I'm reading it correctly. So we have a unique opportunity to tap into $65 million. We only have 42 districts statewide. If my Google search is correct, I will put that disclaimer out there. And so the implication is we should be getting more than a few $100,000 that can actually put a dent in some progress in this. And to, I guess, pay homage, for lack of better words, to Jenny Sika and her advocacy for this programming, I passionately believe in it as well. I grew up on a farm and in a small community, and hands-on industries were what got a lot of kids through it. I've got kids that are currently active in welding and auto body and other things not related to that. And I work in the construction industry, and we're starved for quality employees to go into that, and seeing that, you know, you're looking at HVAC and electrical at the high school level is amazing. I have a best friend that his daughter graduated from high school with nursing certification and is now a doctor. So these pathways and these CTE concepts are just priceless, and it gives students that aren't interested in or able to succeed or whatever it is. You know, we're talking about engagement, we're talking about attendance, and we're talking about truancy and stuff. Finding other ways to help students be excited about their education and excited about coming to school. This is a phenomenal way to do this, and kicking that can down the street when we already have clearly identified the initial cost and that these other organizations are going to do the legwork to get that money together. It's not coming out of our pockets. It's not being taken away from our teachers. We can continue to work on doing for the teachers and our students outside of that, while we're also working for our teachers and for our students to expand upon it. So I struggle on the hang up on the funding piece, because I feel like it's really clearly outlined that we've got outside players that are stepping up to do this for our students and do this for our district. And we're only moving as fast as the money is. So again, it's a no-brainer for me. And I did mention before, I struggled with
I'm Amanda.
West Side because of special education, but that can be dealt with down the road.
A second round.
Because it's necessary.
There's a second round. Bryce, I had Mohammed first and then you. Mohammed?
Yeah, thank you so much. Ashley, did you have a chance to go to Riley?
I've been to Riley many times.
Okay, and you saw like the building itself is so retrofitted, you know, with like some solid big metal bars, you know, with high ceilings and so many things, you know, which really actually allows it to be, you know, a great space for such a program. Also, we do have plenty of space outside of the school, which allows the opportunity for parking, for events, for activities, and you name it. So there are so many things out there. I'm sorry, is there a problem?
Well, I just don't understand why you're asking me questions to me personally.
Yeah, because you're the one who was talking about this space and stuff, you know? Because you mentioned other schools, and I'm just want to make sure that, you know, is there any problem with asking a question?
I think we'll just stay focused
Okay.
on what you want to
Yeah,
say.
because I was asking questions so I can bring my point forward. All right, so, okay, so there is a reason why our district, actually, we got a AAA rating, you know, because they have seen that there is an amazing future opportunity, you know. And imagine what kind of a partnership we will be getting actually within that program if we were to move forward. You know, my faith in the foundation, you've always come through. For every project, you know, you have said you are going to be there to help us and make it happen. You have come through. And I have seen it for the past 4+ years I've been here, and I appreciate that. All of us unanimously, we have voted, and we have actually extended the contract for our business administrator because we trust his ability to actually provide us with good information that we need so we can make sound financial decisions. And to me, you know, we do have all of this information in front of us. And I understand the concern in terms of feasibility study and all of that, but the reality is it is students' career and life in line here. You know, we do spend money on so many things. Yes, we can keep kicking the can along the road, but every day we are pushing this, you know, we're kicking this forward. More students are actually losing a chance to get this opportunity as soon as possible. Our district is a minority majority, and as an immigrant, and we have so many immigrants, we are actually much better at doing things with our hands than opening a book and starting to memorize stuff. That's just like how we are built. That's how we are actually tuned to survive. And if we are here...
Yeah. There's in round 2, though. Bryce?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the constructive conversation that we're having tonight. And I've shared over my time on the board that CTE is something that I really remember about my K-12, but specifically high school education. I'm very excited about the idea of having a new career and technical center. I think CTE is highly important. A lot of the questions that I had have been answered, and they were questions that Board Member Anderson asked as well. sorry, my thoughts are all over the place. I'm trying to remember what's been talked about and what hasn't been talked about. I was also going to say, though, that we do have a responsibility as 7 board members to answer the questions that our constituents have. And the question, many people in my precinct are very excited about a CTC center, very excited about it being on the west side. But the questions that I am getting is about the financial aspects and the funding sources. I have full faith in the foundation. I think there's possibility to get some of this CTC funding, things of that nature. But we've also come across times in this district where we've been told something's going to cost a certain amount and it's exceeded far beyond that. So I have a little bit of a reservation in trying to count, with the exception of the foundation. All these other things, I have a little bit of a reservation. I'm trying to count on these things. A little bit different than a feasibility study. I actually have a question in regards to like an architect specific to Briley's site. I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if we were to have an architect come in and look at what those potential costs may be. Again, I'm not against the CTC Center. I'm not against having it at Riley, but I think we owe our constituents and our community a little bit more groundwork before we make a final decision on this site.
Charlotte, did you?
Yeah, I was looking at our G5 procedures about future use of unused district facilities. And it's those facilities that we don't feel there is a need for students that we would do a feasibility study on, right? And then to put up for sale. Is that right? Or
Can we bring the options to the
Oh.
board of sale or repurposing?
Okay. So, but I do think if there's some less involved process to get a better idea of cost and what would all be involved in the transition, in moving the CTC center there, that would be good. But I wouldn't, so I would say that I would want to move forward with this tonight, but with that instruction, I also wanted to just say that my dad graduated from West High School and lived on the west side. Was in a low-income family, and he did welding. That was one of his first jobs. He had an apprenticeship at a welding place, and then he ended up going on to become a civil engineer. Yeah, so I do think that's a very good potential pathway.
I just wanted to ask a follow-up there, Charlotte. So you were saying there you want to go forward, but you'd want to go forward with the stipulation that we do a financial piece? Is that what you were saying? I wanted to just clarify what you were after there.
Yeah,
Like that?
I think so.
Like an architect getting in.
I don't know if it's an architect or a construction company, or I don't know, some kind of consultant.
You could ask that in your second round.
Yeah.
Okay.
Helena, do you have anything to weigh in on in the first round discussion?
I was gonna ask if there's any intentions for how this will be used by people not directly in these particular CTE classes, like middle schoolers who come on tours and stuff, or clubs that would benefit from similar facilities.
I would love to have elementary and middle school kids coming in to tour just to see what's available. Anything that expands their world and says, oh my gosh, look, I didn't know you could learn to fly drones and get into a pilot program, or I didn't know you could do fire science and, get into that kind of thing. Just even if it's a first job out of high school, not your whole career. Like Charlotte's husband has made it a full career. So there is that. The other piece is we'd be very interested in trying to work with the community to make this available to the community for adult ed classes in the after hours. So we would only have needs until like 3:30, right? 3:30, something like that, and then offer it to the community. We've got the Sorensen Center right there. There'd be ways to maybe partner. Is that kind of where you were headed with that? The other thing is, this isn't only for pathway completers, it's just for those who are interested in the courses.
I'll defer my first round. Brian, did you have anything more to add?
I did. Gotta get
Your
my
time.
time. I appreciated the presentation and also the focus on like the timeline, because I think that there has been some confusion there.
Sam, will you click that back just one? Thank you.
Yes, where phase one is the 2026-2027 school year. I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, but emails that I have been getting or things that I have been hearing was, this is all going to happen in 2025, 2026. How are we going to do that? And I guess one of the hopes that I would have is with our administration figuring out how you can make sure that messengers aren't giving maybe information that isn't quite clear. I mean, I have gotten responses where, from teachers, okay, this is a done deal, and now we're going to have to move our class, and we're going to have to do it this summer, and school is ending in 2 weeks, and how am I going to do all of this?
Why don't I clarify? Nothing's a done deal till the board votes on it.
Well, that's what I was getting at, and to me, it's
Nor
just...
have we said that anywhere, nor has the senior team said it, so I'm not sure where that's happening, but we'll work on countering
Okay,
that.
I'm not trying to find who's, well, I guess in a way I'm trying to find who's doing that, but I'm not trying to assign blame for anyone, but I think that it is disconcerting when, and I don't know, maybe it's just a rumor mill, but to me, this is really beneficial to have the public hear, okay, this is phase one, this is phase two, this is phase three, because what this is telling me is it lends itself to what we've been talking about here with Amanda and Bryce and now Charlotte. Okay, could we have an architect look at it? Could we get the idea a little bit more established as to the cost? But moving ahead with the idea that we're going to do it, and once we've done it, then we can get the architects to help us understand where we are cost-wise.
I take it back. I'm going to ask a question of maybe Alan and Laura. What does your CTE budget look like right now? And could we cover some of these initial costs? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think it'd be good for me just to know.
Point of order, we don't have initial costs, really. Like, we've been told one number by Alan just now, but we have not been presented a budget. So when we're talking about total costs, I think what some of us have been asking for is a total cost. So just as a point of correction, we don't have a cost we're comparing something against because we've not been presented a cost or
Well, then
budget.
I'll reframe my question. We have an estimate of $40,000 to $55,000. We have an
And
estimate, excuse me,
$12,000
Ashley, I'm speaking. We have an estimate of about $12,000 to repair or to renovate classrooms. Is that something with those estimates, while they're not fixed costs by any means, but is there a healthy enough budget in your programming, Alan or Laura, to be able to manage something like that if those were realities in what we would have to cover?
So you can come up, but I'll, so at the end of 2024, so June 30th, 2024, the end of that fiscal year, we carried over a little over $900,000 in CTE funds. We'll know for sure as we get to the end of the year what our carryovers in next year, but it'll be in the several $100,000. I would guess at least $500,000 carryover. And those, just the carryover funds alone are sufficient for those initial move of classrooms over.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I know I made you come up here for, but I appreciate your management of your funds as well. No, but I appreciate the conversation, and we'll move into round two. Amanda, I know your time got cut off short. Do you want to start us off?
May I just make one comment, just so you guys can ask questions about it in case that, the timing piece, I think, was asked. The one timing constraint I would worry about is that these catalyst grants that we have coming, from what I understand, USB is just hiring a director of that program. So we anticipate in the next couple of months, they'll have the grant on the street. We're ready as a group, because of our CTE program and how good it is, we're ready to apply. But we would want to catch that window of opportunity on the grant application and not lose that if there were a longer study time. So if we could do the study time with the recognition that we want to do it so that we can get to the grant application. I want to have the board's approval to move forward with the site before we apply for some dollars to expand the site. So I want to have that on the board agenda so we can get that before we apply for the funds.
And I want to be very, very, very clear. I do not feel it is necessary to do a study before we make the motion to approve this. Because it's been made very clear to me, again, it's not coming out of district funds, so it's not coming out of the dollars that are to go towards our educators, to our coaches, to our paras, to our students. It is going to build upon that programming. And we can put guardrails in place, and Alan in this conversation has identified that the rollover of CTE should more than cover the transfer over to the Riley site. I do feel like we should not need to buy brand new everything. We have a lot of existing furnishings that should be utilized to bring those costs down. And so that when this is a motion considered for approval, we can put guardrails in there that clearly put the boundaries in place that in the past have been expressed, that without those there, kind of like when this was passed in the beginning, yes, we will do a CTC program. There is no money attached until you come forward and ask for it. So now you're asking for it. And so similarly, we can put those guardrails in place, but I think it would be negligent, mainly, but not only, because of the $65 million that is now. It's not in a couple of years, it's now. And when it's gone, it's gone. It's one-time funds. So they've been extremely clear where this money is coming from. And I would actually say with the constituents, is there concern regarding the money just because of the money, or is there concern because they might feel that it's coming out of the general education fund, therefore impacting what we're putting into teachers and staffing? Are they clear about what that concern is? Because that's where this, like Brian was talking about, this conversation might be very clarifying for the community as to where these monies are coming from, how these monies are coming from. We're not moving until the money is actually available and on.
Brash, you give me the look.
Yeah, I think that question might have been directed to me about constituent concerns. I think it's everything you said and the piece that I brought up, that we have had periods of time where we've estimated that something's going to cost a certain amount of money and it's been a lot more. And so they're worried that that is going to, we're going to have to find those funds somewhere else.
Do you have anything else you want to say with your time?
I don't think so.
Ashley, do you have anything around
Sure.
here? Okay.
I have a couple of things I want to acknowledge, but first I have one follow-up question based on what was stated. Why aren't we using nearly $1 million of CTE money during the academic year on student needs?
I can absolutely address that. It's never an intent for a program to roll over funds. We've been talking about this center for a year, and we are allowed to roll over funds if there's intent for the use of the dollars. So that's exactly what we anticipate the money being used for, and that's the whole reason why we rolled over them.
So that's interesting, and I think that's where the mythology of administrators telling teachers this is a done deal comes from, because we haven't been talking about this for a year, and we didn't know there was a plan to carry forward funds. So I think that's where some of this confusion comes to pass. And that leads me to kind of the two things I want to acknowledge before we proceed with our discussion, which is it would be completely unprecedented for the school board to make a decision about a program without a total cost. And have talked about numbers today from an email that none of us have seen, that doesn't actually link to any line items. And we're talking about a grant application where the ink is not even dry. And so I just cannot overstate how unprecedented it is to proceed with a decision without first identifying the total cost of a recommendation that comes to us when we're talking about the public's money. And the public hasn't seen the email, the public hasn't seen a budget or a line item, and we're talking about spending the public's money in part on something that has not been shared with the public. So that would be unprecedented. And to that end, I think what Board Member Fife Jefferson is suggesting is trying to reach a good compromise between moving forward with the intent of a CTC and acknowledging that we do owe the public, giving them that financial information. The thing is, I can't reconcile how we move forward with identifying the location without identifying the cost of retrofitting that location for long-term use. Because saying we could do phase 1 doesn't mean that phase 2 will find that we can tailor spaces for those programs, because I'm not an architect. So I think that would just be unprecedented.
Anything on this end of the table, Paul or Charlotte?
Yeah, I'll just give my 2 cents here, you know. This is just for kids who have a different way of learning. And what an amazing opportunity it is for them to know that there are options out there for them in this district. And especially as our district is dealing with a declined student population, what an amazing opportunity it is for us actually to open that door that might help bring more students from the other districts. And also, you know, the reality of transportation, people are adaptive, you know, and I got my kid, he loves soccer. I will drive to Timbuktu if he wants to play soccer. And it's just a reality. For us as parents, if we know our kids love something, we will do everything possible to make sure that that happens. Literally speaking, this program here is only meant to actually help expand the amazing talent that is out there hidden and is not given enough space where it can be expanded. And this is our opportunity to continue to be the leading district, as a matter of fact, and continue to be actually a AAA district, because Salt Lake City is expanding, Olympics are coming, businesses are coming to Utah, and what an amazing opportunity it is for us to have a space where our kids actually can grow in preparation for that growth.
I just wanted you to clarify what you said about students wouldn't be completing their pathway. It's not for students completing their pathways? I didn't understand that.
It's not only for students.
Oh.
So you don't have to
Oh,
get to completing a pathway to take some of these courses. Some are prerequisites for others. We don't want you welding advanced until you've welded beginning, but otherwise.
Like just get a taste of different things.
Yeah, you can take different courses. Our aim is trying to get that whole pathways idea going more directly and encouraging students to explore something a little fuller
Mhm.
before they're out of school. So,
And
just
can
to
I
say
ask
that
another?
CTC is not restricted to those on those paths.
Okay.
It's available to
Got
all
it.
kids.
Understood.
Yeah.
What assessments of the building has Isaac done? Or maybe in conjunction with with the programs, like the fire science program or some of the other programs that would be housed there? Like, has anybody gone to look at it, or?
He's looked at it as a building with his understanding. He's been to the CTC centers like the one in St. George. He's been to the Catalyst Center. He knows what we're thinking of to do this. He works in the trades. He knows the kind of spaces some of those programs might need. So he's looking at the space itself and its ability to grow it and understanding the underlying infrastructure in the building versus the other ones that we have on hand that we've closed. So he's doing that kind of analysis from what they know about the quality of the structure within the buildings and then understanding just the space. But he's not done what an architect would do to say, in order to build something large enough to house this or that, you need to knock down these walls, that would cost this much, kind of thing. He's not done that kind of analysis.
And have any of the other CTE instructors come to look at the building, or, no? Question. It's gone.
May I ask a question aligned with what Charlotte was asking? It goes aligned with.
Used your
You can
time.
totally say no, that's fine. I was just going to tag it into what you were saying, which I think was heading down the
I'll
path
give
you
you
were
some
going.
more time.
Is that okay? So,
Let's see, you have 41 seconds.
no problem. Of the programs at your current location, which ones actually would need some retrofitting to occur to have them be able to move to Riley in their current state, or their functioning state? It's the only one that I'm aware of that has decent amount is the nail salon, or whatever the others, I don't know if they comparable engineering.
Right, so the nail tech room is an easy one to move. It's a classroom, just a change in, they're using existing tables right now. Of course, we'd love to have a more nail salon friendly space, right?
Ventilation.
Yeah, ventilation, things like that, but welding would be a very big one that we would need to move over, because we'd have to create a welding facility there that was larger than the one we currently have at Highland, that's housed at Highland and paid for with Tech Center funds.
Before I can't talk anymore, sorry. Welding wouldn't be moving on phase one though, would it? Because it would still be at Highland High until Highland's being
That's correct.
rebuilt. So phase one would not include that piece. I'm talking about what's currently at your location.
Yeah, no, most of it would be moving structural things over, tables. The CNA program, we'd be bringing hospital-sized beds over. I'm just trying to
So
think
not
of
structural or engineering, just items.
just mainly items at this point. Computer labs. Our fire science program is the one that we would have to move an ambulance. That's a pretty large move, but it doesn't, nope, it's a simulator. But I watched them install it, and I know that they can dismantle it and reinstall it somewhere else. Yeah.
Paulina?
Is all the time
It is.
I remembered what I was wanting to.
Paulina, then Brian.
Well, not to harp on what's already been said, but because the Capital Campus Fund is a one-time grant, can the CTE fund like accommodate the ongoing costs of, for example, if you have welding, which has like a wait list, is that because the space can't accommodate enough students, or like because the teachers there aren't enough teachers to accommodate the students, so you'd have to pay more educators and things like that? Like, would the CTE fund be able to accommodate that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we would work on. The nice thing about state dollars is that they do give you more if you have more students signed up. So there is some of that. At some point, there's an end to the number of dollars they'll give us, I imagine, but they do expand with the numbers that way.
Brian?
I think that this has been a really valuable conversation, because I think that we have been able to work through some confusion. What I think is also valuable is for us to identify that we're talking about, in my mind, two things. The first is providing a program which is valuable to students. And I don't think there's anyone on the board that doesn't agree that that's a critical piece, that we need to provide that sort of a program. I don't think that the questions that have been asked are negating that. I think that what those other questions are going to is financing. And I think it's really important for us to remember and for the public to hear that we are the stewards of public funds. And before we make a decision, we have really discussed that and have understood how it's going to be funded and how we're going to identify what the actual cost is, or come as close as we can through those architect plans, or we are accountable to the public for how we use those plans. And so I appreciate that other part of the conversation. Thank you.
I'll use my time. Alan, as our business administrator, you've been listening to this conversation. What are some of your reactions to some of the questions from board members, including myself, about carryover funds, or how would we fund this in the future? Are there differences in how we fund something, say, like the district office, which went well above our estimated cost for a number of reasons, like time, 3 years during the COVID pandemic, and inflation during the COVID pandemic? Like, there's all sorts of different factors that play into this that Bryce is bringing up, that are valid, and from your vantage point as our business administrator, hearing the conversation, knowing the relationship that you worked with James and Rick on, and the select board on, you help us get a AAA rating, in coordination with your predecessor. Where are you at with this conversation, and how would you respond to some of the quandaries that we have as a board right now?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say the district's biggest investment in this is the building, which we've already paid for. We paid for it when we built it. So it's a building that's now closed as far as the school goes. And so we do have to determine what to do with that property, which is what's starting this conversation through that G5 process. As we've stated before, phase one is almost a turnkey process. You just move the classes from where they're at over there, get some new furniture, pay for with CTE funds, which they've saved up for this purpose. And I do want to note, so it's kind of cyclical with the carryover in CTE. As they know, we're going to have a big equipment expenditure because this expensive stuff's going to wear out and we need to replace it. So they save up, then they replace it, carries over, go down. And so if you look historically, you're going to see that cycle process. And I want to emphasize too, it would be hard to get what's the total cost today, because we need to work with community partners, and we say which partners, which of the partners in the valley want to partner with us, and what do we want to see, and what does industry want to see that we're teaching kids in this building. And so we need to move forward, and so to be able to say this is how much it's going to cost over the next 10 years. Because the initial, what we could do right now is, we don't plan on doing a big remodel. And even the welding, we could get a cost for the welding. The stuff that we know, it's the stuff that we plan out to be responsive to industry that, it depends on what the industry is. But I do, with the foundation, every time we've given them a task to fundraise for a specific project, they always come through. They've kind of stated, give us the plans and let us go. And again, we don't need to do anything significant until that money's in hand. So when I say we won't be using district money in the future, I stand by that, because if something happened and they didn't have the money, then that project holds until the money's in.
I have 26 seconds that I will give to Charlotte, because she remembered her questions.
It was about what guardrails, I was gonna ask Alan, what guardrails would you think would be wise for, or good for us? Stipulations or whatever it is that we can do today to.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about an architect. At some point, we need an architect. And we may need an architect now, but then a continued relationship with an architect as plans further develop. So a step of getting an architect on a contract to help us with this project is, regardless of what we do today, that's gonna be one of the first steps we do. So as we say, okay, we wanna bring the welding program down in 27 or 20, you know, whenever that is. Okay, architect, what's the ventilation, what's the power supply, what's all that? So we will wanna get an architect, or I believe architect's the right term, but, you know, there's other companies out there that consult, but I think largely what we need is, what does the current building do for the things we see in the future, what would the current building need? So regardless of what we end up voting on, an architect's gonna be in the near future.
With that, I'm gonna end discussion, and I'll seek a motion. If the board would like to make one. I saw 2 hands go up. Go ahead.
I make a motion to move the, I'm the right terminology. Property use for former Riley Elementary site repurposing for expanded career tech center to the action agenda.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I know we'll get to it again when it gets to action. We're getting into the late hours, so seeing none, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote starting with Charlotte.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Amanda, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
All right, that motion passes. We'll revisit it on the action agenda. Moving on into the discussion agenda, item number 2 is the high school rebuild athletic field needs. And I believe, Alan, you're taking this on because Isaac is out.
All right, some of these initial slides are just gonna be kind of repeats from a previous presentation. Again, Isaac apologizes, he's not here, so you get me again. Yay, all of us.
Yay. Sorry, you were slow to respond.
So again, just kind of showing the need of why we need some temporary field space, why we rebuild both West and Highland High School. We'll be moving the building, the campus over to the east side of 300 West, which is where a lot of their athletic facilities are. And then after that, we would tear down the old building and put the athletic facilities on the west side. But in the meantime, during that transition, we do need a place for baseball, softball, track, soccer, etc. Same with Highland, as we rebuild, some of their needs are already going to be addressed by the Roslyn Heights sports facility that opens this summer, but they still have a need for baseball and softball. This is just shown before some of the sports. This is the Highland High sports and kind of how many years that they would need to use their temporary sites for. And West High School, I do want to note, and we'll reiterate again a little bit, since our previous discussion, we've had further discussions with the city about potential partnering with some of the city sites. So today's presentation won't focus on where baseball and softball for West High might be, because we will have those conversations hopefully in the next week, and we'll be able to bring in our next board meeting some additional conversation on partnering with the city. Options that we've presented, so there currently is a track out at Glendale that was coordinated with the foundation. We would upgrade that track so it meets high school standards. In addition, there in the center, we put our soccer lacrosse field in the middle, and then put some facilities, locker rooms, bathrooms, etc. Again, it's an estimate of $4 to $5 million, kind of depending, do you put artificial turf in the field or you put grass? We've been in preliminary conversations also with the foundation, as they were integral in the initial track that's out there, to also help raise some funds, possibly not to pay for the whole thing, but to offset some of those costs at this particular site. This would cover, again, for West High School, their track, soccer, and lacrosse needs. We reviewed where we could put a softball field at Clayton Middle School. There behind the school in that field. We would put the field in, dugout, scoreboard, fencing, irrigation, estimated cost of $1.5 million.
So the scoreboards are one of the things.
Scoreboards are up for debate still.
Yeah.
Yep. We do have an existing field there at Dilworth that we would upgrade to be able to take on baseball for Highland. I just want to note that there's been some discussion that, years ago, before the current baseball at Highland, they did play at Sugarhouse Park. As I've talked to people, first of all, so when we have these discussions with the city, Sugarhouse Park is managed and owned by the Sugarhouse Park Authority, so a different entity. So those city conversations won't really be involved there. But what I hear is that the site at the Sugarhouse Park would need just as much upkeep, repair, and building as this Dilworth site, if not more. So there, as far as a construction cost, there really wouldn't be much cost savings there, if any. Again, as I noted, we're currently in talks with Salt Lake City to partner to upgrade some city fields for West High baseball and softball, and update the board when we have that information, hopefully by your next board meeting. And so what we're kind of looking at is, moving forward with the 3 projects that were laid out here, the track area at Glendale, the softball field at Clayton, and the baseball field at Dilworth. Yeah, so another thing, so we'll start breaking ground on the west campus next spring. So we need something ready in place by, because baseball season really kind of starts in February. So if we're gonna do something where we plant grass, lay sod, whatever, we need to kind of move this stuff along as quickly as possible. Clearly, we won't have answers on everything until we have that discussion with the city and finalize any plans we might be able to come to there. But these are some things we need to move relatively quickly on. Again, we won't be able to move tonight on everything because we don't have all the answers yet. So I just want to throw out there, this isn't something we can ponder all summer long because we would then not have enough time to actually get a field ready for the next season. But I just want to throw that out there.
And just for clarification point, Alan, what you're specifically looking for us to address tonight is the Glendale track.
Glendale track,
The Dilworth,
the Dilworth, and then Clayton's.
softball at Dilworth.
Softball at
Clayton, baseball at Dilworth. Sorry, I get it mixed up.
Correct.
Thank you for that. We'll open it up to questions. Ashley, I saw your hand first.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that are important, and one is that Highlands baseball would not be disrupted until significantly after West's. So I think it would be not prudent to move forward with fields for the east side for Highland when we have not yet resolved what's happening with West. And this does have some entanglement with our first discussion item because we looked at a baseball option at Riley, and if the city option is not available, West High students have no other field other than Riley or to take Backman's playground away. So it seems like moving forward on these decisions that have all been tangled together in property use becomes a little bit confusing. And it's another area where we've still been presented with minimal costs. So we just fixed Highlands baseball field for $1.3 million in 2021. And it's not clear then why we would turn around, spend $2 million, tear it up, use a temporary field, turn back around and have to do the exact same thing. I think there's a lot of information missing, and it is most prudent to resolve the MOU issues before moving ahead.
Thanks, Ashley. Any other questions?
Do
Amanda?
you want to address that before I ask mine? I mean, mine kind of interplays
Well,
with what Ashley
so,
said.
if you remember, the reason the baseball field at Highland is going to be disrupted is that's where we would put the the heat pumps, ground source heat pumps. So, and again, that's as Isaac had laid out, using ground source heat pumps. has a cost savings, for the life of the building, because we won't be paying for, utility, gas, we won't have to be buying that stuff. He estimates, that, we'll save about 50% of our utility costs for that, so it's a kind of a lifetime savings over the building. Because we have the other issues at hand, and Isaac's not here, so I can speak, if the board, since we don't have the West High discussion finalized yet, I'm gonna make an executive decision, we don't have to have the Highland High situation finalized yet either, as we can delay those until we have had our meetings with the city to see what they're offering, if the board doesn't feel comfortable, if they wanna kinda see the whole package still. And then we can have Isaac back here at our next meeting, can address some of those issues with the heating sources, and we can even bring our sustainability people to address, how much the heating, the ground source heating pumps add to the Highland facility, why they're important, why they're gonna be where they're at, and kind of addressing those issues as well.
Amanda?
So I guess that was partly what part of my question was how soon do we need to make these decisions for Highland High School's athletic sports? Obviously, the construction for the geothermal area plays more into the building, or less the fact that I understand there's overlays on how the construction plays out, but I guess one of the things, and maybe you don't know the answer, is why do the geothermal pumps have to go under the baseball fields? Like, could it actually go to another area that we're not destroying all of our sports fields over at Highland High School and incurring costs to look elsewhere and then replace, versus it going in a different spot in the parking area, only in the football area or something else that we could be saving several $1 million in the process. That part, and until tonight, I other than I came across an email, I was not aware that the geothermal thing was a thing. It wasn't at the forefront of my thinking, so maybe it was stated and I just did not hear it. So there are some community members that brought it to my attention, actually, so that was concerning. So I think we should be looking at whether that's an appropriate placement in the cost factor and the function factor with these athletic fields. You did state Sugar House Park, it might be a wash cost-wise if we do end up needing to utilize an alternate location for baseball and softball. However, it might be a wash cost-wise, but convenience-wise for the students that are still going to be attending the school building. I realize those other locations of those athletic fields aren't too far away, but being able to walk over to the park could be a huge access point for kids that may need that access for ease. And then understanding, as we're fleshing this out, when these fields will become unusable. So, you've identified with West High School the approximate time that the new ones, the replacement fields need to be operational for them. But we need to kind of comparably find out when Highland High School's fields are going to become inoperable, so we know kind of timing on decisions and whatnot in relation to why we're considering certain things versus others. Kind of my thoughts.
Anything you want to add to that, Alan?
And I think those are things we can add. I mean, we've kind of built the agenda, but we can add, if this gets pushed to the next board meeting, we can add that stuff as a discussion topic and help, really lay out the timelines we can bring in, whether it's the architects or our, McKinstry, whoever is the best expert to discuss the placement of those heat pumps.
Yeah, one thing about the Glendale track field. I happened to be at Glendale for the awarding or recognizing one of the three finalists for Teacher of the Year, and I talked with the coach there. He's the PE coach, but he was involved. He runs the track, their track program, and he has a lot of really good ideas that could save money, also could help with convenience. And I think it would be, I told him to talk with the team, right? There's a,
Start with Isaac.
yeah, I told him to talk with Isaac, but you mentioned that, or they're still deciding whether to have turf or grass?
Well, because that'd be a community input thing. You know,
Okay.
what's best, I mean, clearly grass is cheaper, but turf has its advantages too, more early in the season, it doesn't get muddy and so forth, so those are some conversations we can have with the community to determine what might be best fit their needs.
And I did hear that, you know, it's easier to maintain and to put different configurations, whether it's lacrosse or soccer, they have to chalk it or whatever. But soccer is really the more dominant sport there. And grass is better for soccer. Also, we have heat islands. This is just me as a community member that lives pretty near there. There's significant heat islands on the west side. And if we put turf, it's just so hot. And so that would be a concern as a community member. But
Yeah, I think those, because we haven't made a decision A or B, but those are things we would gather input for.
okay.
Any other questions for Al and Brian?
Okay, just pulling me up. Alan, I appreciate your executive decision about that we could carry this further. I think that it would be really valuable in this process. You heard me speak earlier about my desire to ensure that we have community engagement and that sort of thing. I think it would be, this is a great opportunity to try and find a time when we could schedule a meeting with the Highland High community, that baseball community. I think they have the historical background and the understanding that we don't have on how Sugar House Park works, how they built, how we spent $1.5 million. I just think it would be a really valuable thing for them to have the opportunity to give input. And I'm now going to go back because I have heard from the community that they, again, were told this was a done deal. And on this one, I have been told of an individual, and I don't want to get into that right now, but I think that it's really critical that we figure out how to address this because it's not a done deal until the board makes a decision. And I think that it's important for the Highland community to hear that it isn't a done deal and there could be an opportunity for some input.
Thanks. Not seeing any other, Ashley, we could move into round two if nobody
Thank
else
you.
wants to go.
I think if we're looking at an option where we move ahead to the next meeting and coordinate some community events, that one other thing we haven't discussed is we really need representations from our leaders in the district who manage our relationship with UHSAA. Because I asked a question about this prior to the board meeting and the superintendent let me know that it was her understanding there wasn't a precedent for scheduling only away games for students during rebuilds and using collaborative practice fields to save money. And this runs counter to everything I've heard from people in peer boards. And so I think what's really critical is we've siloed this conversation about what auxiliary services knows, which is how to build spaces using what we have for the students. But it hasn't included anything with our athletic directors or other parties in the district office who work with UHSAA. And we're not learning from how other districts manage these problems, which I think is contributing to a lot of the misinformation that's guiding some of these decisions. I also think Board Member Jensen talked about this needs to involve engagement at Highland specifically because they were told there would be no disruption to their fields at countless public meetings, and now there is. But it's really important that West also be included in this, given that they're in the most holding pattern of all. And we are poised to potentially act on taking away one of their only available baseball field spaces if the city doesn't pan out.
Yeah, so we did speak with Utah High School Activities Association about that very question of, always doing away games or partnering with other schools. And they say, yes, it has been done, but usually like for one season, if they're doing like a adjustment to their field, is we're looking at multiple seasons. It becomes a little less, well, a lot less viable to do it over multiple seasons. So that's kind of why that's not really something we've been talking about.
Well, if there's no other questions, I'm getting the sense that, oh, Alan?
I do wonder if, what I would love is, because I don't think there's as much question on the Riley, not the Riley, sorry, that was last discussion, on the Glendale site as far as track, soccer, and lacrosse. And I would love to be able to give direction to James and the foundation to move forward with some fundraising campaigns to help offset the cost there. So I don't know if the board is amenable to moving that piece forward and hold on the others while we get the rest of these questions answered.
I would need a motion, or the board would need a motion to make that happen, Alan. So is there a motion to move Glendale forward?
For clarification, is it, so it's specific to the Glendale site?
Correct.
So I guess I would ask my West Side counterparts your opinions in that regard.
Yeah, I move that we accept, that we move this to action, just the Glendale track
Track,
option,
soccer, and lacrosse.
improvement.
I can second that.
We have a motion and a second, and just to clarify, what we're moving specifically is the Glendale track, lacrosse, and soccer
Soccer.
options to the action agenda.
Yes.
And Bryce, that's your second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote, starting with Board Member Anderson.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Amanda Longo, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
That motion passes. We'll revisit that on the action agenda. The next item is our calendar. Brian and I almost shed a tear collectively because we finally have a date that we can propose to the board of August 2nd, which we're really, really excited about. And so basically all we need to do is, if, since we have an agreement from individual conversations with folks today and over the last couple of weeks, that is our preferred date, then all we need is a motion to move it to action so we can adopt it formally into our calendar.
Nate, so the original calendar's never been adopted for next year.
Oh.
So
So we gotta
the motion
do
would
that.
be to add August 2nd and then adopt the full calendar.
Okay, thank you. I missed that. Thank you.
In the same motion? Is that what you're saying? Because I would actually suggest we make a change. We can move to the action and we can discuss it there, but I'd suggest a change to the January 6th meeting if it's doable. Because it's right after basically New Year's Eve, New Year's. And so I'm curious, the district, everybody that's preparing for the meeting, you're typically preparing like the Thursday, the week before when it's falling right on a New Year's Day. Do you want to do that? Or should we bump it a week and let you guys have a little bit of a holiday?
And often a lot of those preparations happen even before the winter break. So just because there is that short time, but we've done it multiple times before, we can continue to do it.
If you don't care, then I'll push to suffer, make you suffer, but I wanted to give you a little bit of grace there if you wanted it.
How about we move board calendar at the very least to action, and we can make that little adjustment if we need to then.
Or we can make it later in the year as well, if it comes up again.
Okay. So we're making a motion to move the board retreat and the 25-26 calendar to the action agenda.
Correct. That works.
Second.
All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll do a roll call vote starting with Mohammed.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Amanda Lingle, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes. So moving on to our action agenda for this evening, the first item is the consent. Agenda item number 6, our land trust plans. Ashley, do you want to form a motion, or is there something that you wanted to say beforehand?
I don't want to move it forward because I can't support the plans as they're posted.
Okay.
May I
Fair
ask,
motion to approve or not approve?
that's all you want? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the 25-26 land trust SIP plans.
Is there a second to the motion?
So can you repeat that again?
Yes, so is there a second to Amanda's motion to approve the land trust plans from this year? And SIP plans?
I second.
So we got a motion and a second from Charlotte. Any discussion? Ashley?
I think many of these plans are compliant and should move forward, and that there are others that risk getting kicked back to us. So personally, I feel I cannot put my name on them. I think a couple of big issues have come to pass over this cycle. The first is that board members did not all uniformly complete our documents that verify the plans were compliant, and I think we need to step up as a full board, and every individual on the board needs to commit to do their statutory requirement, which is review the plans. In reviewing those plans, many of them had non-compliance in terms of seating the council, and I know that Dr. Marriott and others are working with boards on, or SCCs on coming into compliance in the future, and I think that that is a noble goal, and it's definitely not the fault of the schools that this is happening. It's a lack of sufficient training, and specifically, Brian has been asking for many years for us to commit to giving better training to our school community councils and the parents, grandparents, and school administrators and faculty working on them. But as it is, many of the posted plans we'd be approving are non-compliant, and so I can't put my name on them.
Thank you, Ashley. Any further discussion? Charlotte?
Can I just ask, like, if you have specifics? You said about the seating of the councils, in terms of having 2 more parents than employees, or is it something else?
It's more than that. So seating the council also means that the people who are approving in the SCC meetings, the plans, align with the people who were elected to serve on that council. So some of our councils have totally different groups of people approving their plans, and they are not keeping the council and replacing people when they're leaving. Maybe because they lack support. But so seating the council means the election and seeing that body through to the vote.
Dr. Grant, is that you understanding as well?
Christine, would it be helpful, do you have something to add to that, knowing some more of the details on this?
Yeah, I mean, I would add a couple things. One is principals.
Will you grab the mic there?
So principals do sign the assurances that they are running their SCC at their school. And it's, I believe principals do need more training and ongoing training, which is what we have started and will continue. Also, you know, I don't, nor do area directors really micromanage that. But it is certainly, you know, when you are at SCC meetings, or if you would like to track the actions of the SCCs, the minutes are posted on the websites, and you can see, you know, what is happening with individual schools' SCCs. It is possible sometimes that a member steps away or doesn't attend a meeting in January and February. If the principal doesn't, or the SCC chair doesn't find a replacement, and we're right in the cycle of school improvement plans, you can have some anomalies between members who are listed on the land trust site and members who were at the meeting when the plans were approved. So that is something that in all of the schools, we're working on refining and fine-tuning exactly what the procedure is for those SCC councils. And so that is actually the item that we were non-compliant on this year, that the state noticed as well, and it's the item we've been training principals on in anticipation for next year having those, all of those problems worked out. And principals knowing what to do, chairs knowing what to do, to your point, Brian, of course. As far as the plans go, if there is a school that you feel is non-compliant, or you feel like you can't pass a plan, the request is that they get a written explanation of why the plan is not approved, and then that you request the school to make corrections, and then I'll support the superintendent in helping those schools come into compliance. So it's not really even a yes, no, approve them or not. Any plan that's not approved, we're directed to continue with that school until they reach compliance. So if you have a written explanation of the problem that you see in the plan, that's what we'll start with to help those schools come into compliance.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. Did that answer your question? Okay, perfect. Ashley and then, or Amanda and then Brian.
Now Brian, go first. I always dominate, sorry.
Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that you're working with the schools. And in our last board meeting, I think in my board member report, I requested that we did look at this, and Superintendent Grant, we recognized that we needed to have some training, especially in January.
Already earmarked it,
Yeah.
yes. Good, Brian.
I think that's going to be really valuable. I thank you, Ashley, for acknowledging the SCCs. They're working really hard on these things. And when they don't have the proper training, that's discouraging that they've spent this time and then they find out that, and what I'm wanting us to avoid in the future is this sort of a situation. And I think that we finally recognize the areas that need to be addressed, and I'm looking forward to our addressing them, and then we'll have a system in place that will ensure that this doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Amanda?
A couple of points. It is good to hear that there is an option to remedy the schools that there's a pending issue with. I would not be comfortable not passing this and potentially being punitive to them not receiving the monies based on needed training when there is a avenue to help these schools come into compliance. And there was a comment about the, not all boards filled out the documents, as board members filled out the documents, if I heard you right. It was communicated to me that that was not necessary, and it's a piece that, it was communicated to me, but it's a piece that I've requested that the process be improved, that it is more transparent for us board members to know, not only for this, but also regarding the positive behavior plans that we talked about. Better clarity as to our expectations in reviewing these and approving these, and the transparency to our fellow board members as to who's done what, so we can vote with confidence. That's my piece.
Thank you, Amanda. And, thank you for the discussion too. And I'll own my piece of this, that I can certainly do a better job next year reminding board members that these are due and here are the processes and all those things. So I'll own that piece of it. Is there any further discussion? Ashley?
There's one more thing that we continue to not be doing, which is we are not reviewing the content of the plans and including them in our budget cycle, which, you know, the third round has come and gone, and our budget book is about to close, and again, we are not fulfilling that obligation as a board.
Any further discussion or points?
That's why we need to have this.
Training?
Training.
Yeah, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea what
The board needs training, the administrators need training, the SCCs need training.
Seeing no further discussion, we'll start with a roll call vote, starting with Vice President Jensen.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Amanda Longley, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, no.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Yes.
That motion passes. The next item on our action agenda is property use for the former Riley Elementary site, repurposing for expanded CTC center. Is there a motion on the table? Is there something that you guys need to say to the whole board?
Sorry, I was just clarifying, sorry, because I misunderstood her.
Okay.
What were you saying?
I would just introduce the Riley Elementary repurposing, property use repurpose for a CTE center, CTC center. And I was looking for a motion so that we can move this forward in some way, shape, or form.
I make a motion to approve the property use former Riley Elementary site repurposing for expanded career tech center with the contingency that it will not be using any of our general funds or capital funds to cover the cost unless specifically requested and approved. And that along with phase one, a procurement of a architecture firm will be obtained to do what is necessary to identify the needs of the building for the upcoming phases. How's that for a mouthful? You can listen to the recording to get all that down.
Second. I have a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion?
I have a clarifying question.
Not yet. Alan was asking for the second. You good? Okay. Ashley?
Yeah, I have a clarifying question about what that means. If we're committing that we're not using money, but we don't yet have the costs from the architect, I don't understand how we can agree to that in that order.
What I stated was that it comes with the contingency that we do not use general funds or capital funds for this project unless we specifically approve it. That does not negate the ability to use CTE funds, SLEF funds, and the, let me dig back through here. What was the third one?
HB
I
447.
think I understand what you mean.
Any other discussion?
No one else is gonna ask, I just would say a couple more things. I think it feels alarming to me that I would have learned more about the proposed CTC from a grammar request than I've learned as a board member since we started talking about it. I think I shouldn't have to grammar request information to know that we're carrying forward money with a designated purpose without communicating that to the board. I think it remains unprecedented to agree in one meeting to use the public's money without a total of how much we plan to spend, no matter the line item it comes out of. I think if we've been planning this all along, the board should have been included in the discussion, as should our constituents. I think everyone on the board is supportive of CTE, not least of all, it's required by law. We provide these opportunities to students. I do also want to say that regardless of how this moves forward, I would really caution everyone to please stop using stereotypes to proffer who CTE is for. CTE is part of a wide-reaching curriculum provided by the state of Utah. It is not for some particular students to train to do labor. They are all human beings engaging in the world, and stereotypes that are hateful should not be tolerated in this discussion in an ongoing manner.
Thank you, Ashley. Any other discussion points? All right, seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Board Member Williams.
Bryce Williams abstain.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, no.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Amanda Longo, yes.
That motion passes. Moving on to the next agenda item, we have the Glendale track for the purposes of repurposing for renovations for track, soccer, and lacrosse. Is there a motion on the table?
I move that we approve, the Glendale, the high school rebuild athletic field needs at Glendale for the purpose of soccer and lacrosse and track.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Amanda. Sorry, I skipped you last time. Right.
Amanda Longley, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
That motion passes. Moving to our final action agenda item, we have the board's calendar. What we need to do here, based on the previous discussion, is add August 2nd to the board calendar and then approve the board calendar for 25-26. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion, is there a second?
Amanda Longley, second.
Perfect. Any discussion? Seeing none. Seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Ashley.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
That's late. Amanda Longley, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
That motion passes. So we are moving now into our superintendent report. Dr. Grant?
I'll try and be quick. I just want to call out some students and teachers. I want to recognize Northwest Middle School, who has done a lot of work as a teacher body to raise funding for their community, particularly led by the exceptional art and ceramics teacher, may I say, because she does beautiful ceramics, Melissa Coyle. They've raised $500,000 through Donors Choose to provide supplies, and a lot of that for art. I'm just so impressed. I'm sorry that they have to raise it, but I'm impressed that they have. I want to shout out to our national math counts. You remember we had our math counts winners. We had some great folks up here. We had 4 Utah students who competed. One of those was from West High School, Ashita Mandawal, a student from West, along with, I've got to say, Todd Vaudry, who keeps coming up as one of the most exceptional teachers in our district, won the Presidential Award for STEM teaching already nationally. He was the coach for the team. Out of 56 states and territories, Utah placed 4th with one of our students in the lead, which is pretty impressive. The mathletes ranked in the top 25% of all competitors, including our Ashita Mandawal, and just a shout out to them that way. I'm going to give another shout out to Ashita. I gave some shout outs to the debate team winners in a last board meeting and forgot some, so I want to call some out. West High School's ELP debate took home honors at the state championship. Overall results, they got first place with Hana Aoki and Nishka Namjoshi. I apologize for the names, I'm giving it my best here. Second place for Ashita Mandawal, who's also a great STEM national mathlete, and Vixing Zhao, Adwaita Mandawal, and Jaden Roos also took 5th place. Then in policy debate, we had speaker awards. First place, Nishka Namjoshi, and I'm apologizing, Nishka. Second place, Ashita Mandawal. 7th place, Jaden Roos. 9th place, Lishon Zhao. And then our LD debate speaker award to Ethan Kim in 8th grade. I want to call out 2 Nibley Park students who I hadn't named before for the elementary state debate tournament. Lila Shepard and Annie Jiwa won first place for the negative side of debate. They are 6th graders, and Robbie Shepard won first place for speaking a 5th grader. Congratulations to our students. Nice way to end the year. That's it.
All right. Alan, you have a BA report. Okay. What about board member reports? We'll start on your end. Charlotte, you have a board member report.
Well, I was able to go to a meeting at Meadowlark. So it was the first time I actually have been to Meadowlark. And I went there and enjoyed meeting the principal and teachers and the librarian. And that was a really good experience for me to get to know them a little bit. Because it jogs outside of my main area of my district. So anyway, that was nice.
Well, to the parents, as you are getting ready to prepare your kids for graduation, that is going to be an amazing graduation. I'm so excited. My daughter is graduating this year, so I'm officially getting old. But it's just like so amazing to see these kids, and their excitements, and to see parents' bank account getting emptied for parties and buying dresses here and there. But it is just like, I don't know, even if I try to describe it to you, words are not enough too, because I never experienced something like that in my life. But seeing it happening here in this country with my kids and their friends, and so this district and this board does so much to make sure that this generation, that these kids actually have everything that they need so that they can carry on their journey in their next chapter. And I'm so proud and humbled to be in this seat here.
Brian?
I'm going to use my board report because I was trying to be very brief when we were reporting on our NSBA. And in a week, we're going to be observing Memorial Day. And when I saw this program that they were using in that New York City district, not New York City, New York State district, it really is remarkable. I just want to read a paragraph. Experience the power of history with our multidisciplinary K through 12 curriculum that brings American history to life. Through the lessons from Normandy and World War II, students will explore themes of sacrifice, remembrance, and the enduring values of freedom. I think that's really something valuable for us to consider, especially at this time of year. Thank you.
Melina? Or Lily, I should say.
Keeping it casual. Yeah. I know that robotics has been discussed throughout the year, but I think that's a testament to how great they are, West High's robotics team. And seeing them fundraise so much, it's really set a precedent and an inspiring example to other clubs. They share their resources on how to fundraise. They fundraise like up to $70,000 a year. I don't know how they do it, but it's great. And also seeing SLEF funding has been really impactful. I mean, I used to do robotics and you could see the tangible difference between years, where now we're going to internationals and things like that have been made accessible, and not just in robotics, but in other clubs. I've seen people cry at the ability to go to these competitions and go on these trips, so it really is life-changing, and I really appreciate that. And to echo Mohammed, I congratulate everyone who's graduating this year, and that reflects Teacher Appreciation Week, which just passed 2 weeks ago. And so thank you to every educator who's seen students to where they are now, and thank you.
Ashley?
So instead of pleasantries, I have some business items to offer. The Salt Lake County Rec Advisory Board met on May 14th. And some items of note for our district there are some requests for school districts to meet with division directors to discuss collaborative relationships, which could be a perfect time to discuss Sugar House Park Authority, which is co-operated specifically by the county. Survey results about the role of the advisory board were distributed. There were updates from various sections, and the biggest update applicable to our district and our students is that the My County Rec pilot program was continued to be funded by Salt Lake County. And if you don't know what My County Rec is, it's a program funded by the county council, which provides free access to rec centers for youth ages 0 to 18. If you already have a pass, that pass does not need to be renewed. You continue to be a My County Rec member. If you have not obtained a pass, go to your rec center, let them know your information, and you can attend rec centers not just all summer, but all year at no cost to you. I also attended the USBA webinar on policy and the JLC meeting if anyone here was not able to attend and has questions. At one of the SCCs I attend, there continues to be confusion about fundraising, which I shared with our business administrator. There's confusion about the designation of clubs, activities, athletics, and how each of them are funded. And it'd be really helpful, sorry, I'm not like upset, I'm losing my voice. I think I have nodules on my vocal cords. I think it's very helpful to close the loop on that. The number one topic in my inbox right now remains extended early days. We heard in our inclusion report tonight that, as well as our Title I survey, teachers need collaborative planning time to do their jobs effectively. And I'm concerned about how we're going to respond to these teacher concerns. I acknowledge that a uniform extension or a reduction of time doesn't change transportation so long as it's uniform. So I wonder how we'll also communicate new bell schedules, to families and community partners who provide transportation to after-school care and activities. Thanks.
Thanks, Ashley. Bryce?
Yeah, a couple of committee meetings coming up. We have the SLF board meeting tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to, and then the policy subcommittee meets next week as well. So I should have some more updates on those next meeting. I want to congratulate Rose Park Elementary and various faculty members at West on the 4th Annual Native American Youth Day that took place on Saturday. I feel like I'm losing my voice as well. It's like I said, the 4th annual. I've been able to attend all 4 years. Unfortunately, this year I was only able to stop by for about an hour just due to some other community events that were happening the same day, but it was a great event. Let's see, 2 more things. Today's Tuesday, this Friday, I'll be attending, I'll be doing a presentation at West High for some students in collaboration with the Seal of Civic Readiness, just on community and civic engagement. I'm looking forward to using my day job, my professional job, to kind of talk more about that with students at West. And then finally, I am very much looking forward to the graduation season as well. I'll be giving the acceptance address at both SLCSD and West, and I am diligently working on trying to finish those acceptance speeches.
You courageous soul. Mine's short and sweet. I got the pleasure of being able to be there for one of the 3 finalists for Salt Lake City School District Teacher of the Year. Thank you, James, for the invite. It was for Ms. Robertson, which she happens to be a co-teaching teacher, and just seeing the joy and the excitement of that experience, and the kids so excited to see their teacher be nominated for that. It was just a priceless moment. It was so fun to be there in person. And then regarding unified sports, the district has highlighted it, but Mostafa was signed to join the Real Salt Lake Special Olympic team. So off of our Highland High School unified sports team, he was selected to be part of this phenomenal opportunity. And I believe, if I remember right from the coach, that they've got 1 game, and it's early fall, I believe. So I'll try to keep you guys posted. But just one more aspect of unified sports is just that they're elated for. So congratulations to Mustafa.
Thank you, Amanda. I don't have anything to report on other than thank you for the latitude to allow me to miss our last board meeting. It was a big week for me with vacation time, birthday, and an engagement, so I was really excited about that. Hi, Courtney, I'll be home sometime soon. But nonetheless, what I'm really looking forward to is our graduation season along with Bryce, all of the events at Huntsman. I'll be giving a commencement address as well, and I'm really looking forward to this Thursday. We'll be honoring our Native American students for their graduation ceremony as well. So with that, I can't call the meeting adjourned because we do have a need for a closed session, and I'll entertain a motion to move us into that.
I move that on May 20th, 2025, the board go into closed executive session to discuss character or professional competence of an individual, and immediately adjourn at the conclusion of the closed session.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Ashley.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes?
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Amanda Longo, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening.